Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I just want to say that's probably why there's a problem with blue zones. Is that historically, even since the 50s, when they were going after like Fedayeen fighters, it was in refugee camps because that's where they operated from. So that's why the blue zone is not necessarily. You can't really have a blue zone because they're that's one problem.
Look,
anyway.
there's no perfect solution there. Like I absolutely agree that the Palestinian Fedayeen, was operating out of refugee camps as well as in Jordan and almost, almost overthrew a monarchy there and then had to get kicked to another country where they started another war and displaced 1 million Christians, But nevertheless, like I do agree that there's no perfect solution here. But the thing is that I don't think you get to take the moral high ground as Israel when you have people isolated into this area.
Just methed out,
I see you've been doing research. Are you finally ready to educate yourself instead of giving us, kind of shitty contrarian takes? Because at this point, honestly, I don't even need to look at your Twitter or your YouTube to know what's your take on the conflict. I could just see what Hassan said, and then I'll be like, oh, Destiny probably holds a opposing thought or position. Anyways,
base.
I mean, really, it is. Like, are you telling me you've never had a doubt since this conflict began? Like, oh my God, like all my positions and takes are just contrarian to all these freaking leftists that are pro-Hamas. You never thought that? Not one time? Or am I reading it to it?
I don't define my political positions based on people I don't like, so that's not usually how I think about things.
Bro, if you're disagreeing with Hassan, you're probably fucking right. Like you're talking about, like he's not even smart enough to be called a midwit, and he's a far leftist. Like, come on.
Damn.
What do you say to that, Corantos?
You just accidentally be right, even if that's not like how you're defining your political philosophy. Like, don't get me wrong.
That's how I define my.
I hate you. I hate everyone to the left. I hate every statist. I hate you. But you fucking come on.
Am I tripping? But if I were to go, okay, listen. Other than Hassan is Hassan, whatever, right? We don't have to agree with him. But if I were to go to your YouTube channel, I think out of all the videos you made on the conflict, each, like maybe one or two of them don't involve Hassan, and the other one is you talking about leftists and their unhinged takes when it comes to their support of Hamas. So I'm happy that you're actually, doing some research. I'm impressed. Good for you.
Well, most of my disagreements haven't been about the conflict, it's been about their coverage of the news, which obviously I disagree with, right?
Yeah,
and then the way
do
you disagree with?
You know what? You've inspired me. I'm going to get up again. I'm going to go put eucalyptus in the essential oil diffuser so I can deal with you fuckers.
I was just asking what examples of something that you disagree with from the coverage.
The framing of every single Palestinian death as a civilian death. The framing of the IDF as indiscriminately killing civilians. Obviously, the initial coverage of the hospital attack. And then the propaganda that's being spread right now that, like, for instance, for that German-Israeli girl, that she was, like, taken to a hospital and everybody was getting along. And apparently now there's, like, conspiracy spreading that all the civilian deaths just were due to crossfire between Hamas and the IDF shooting it. Like, all of these things are, those are 4 or 5, I think,
I mean, did you just see the IDF targeting a refugee camp, claiming they got a senior Hamas commander? Because listen, I don't even have a problem with you covering, the unhinged takes or some of the misinformation that's being spread by one side or the other. But it just seems like there's an incredibly heavy bias towards only covering, the shit that Palestinians are getting wrong or people that are pro-Palestine. Because when it comes to the Israelis and what they're doing, you haven't really been covering shit when it comes to them. So I don't know. But you claim you don't have a side. You claim that you're just seeking the truth. So good for you. Anyways, This is not about you, Kenneth. Did you start the timer, by the way? Don't start the fucking timer when I'm doing all of this, because we didn't even get into the show.
I haven't started anything, don't worry.
Okay, we started now. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 17 of Kick or Keep. Today, we brought together 7 wonderful contestants. They'll be going head-to-head in an elimination-style debate. Did I say elimination? No eliminations this week, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it'll be more of a podcast. We'll let people go back and forth Just don't fucking talk over each other. That's the only fucking rule, right? But at the end, we're still selecting a winner, right? And chat, that's on you. But with all that being said,
Wait, real
ladies and
quick. Wait,
gentlemen-
so then do we have a timer or no? We just like
No, I'd still like to time the topic because I don't want us to like just stay on one topic for 2 hours and then that's the end of the fucking show. So let's still do the timers. But it's going to be like 25 minutes for all the rounds, pretty much. We're not going to decrease. With all that being said and done, I'm your host, kick.com/Arantos. That's QORANTOS live right now. Joining me is my co-host, Destiny. You want to say hi?
hi, what's up? It's Destiny.
Okay, there we go. Before I do the introductions, I want you guys, say a little about yourself and also tell us what your position is. Because I'm curious, right? You lean more towards, being on the Palestinian side or the Israeli side. So, to the right of Destiny, we've got Dylan Burns. Introduce yourself, please.
My name is Dylan Burns. I'm an American political Twitch streamer and I guess you could say amateur war journalist. My positions, I think, for the American political spectrum are definitely more pro-Palestinian, but saying that I'm pro-Palestinian does not mean that I need to align with a lot of the authoritarian nation states like Iran or groups like Hezbollah that back a lot of the militant groups that are fighting into the Gaza Strip right now. There you go.
There we go. Thank you for the intro. To the right of Dylan Burns and above me, a repeat contestant, the one and only, ladies and gentlemen, Fabian. Did I get it right this time, Fabian?
Yeah,
There we go. Fabian Liberty Scott. There we go. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, so I'm Scott from Fabian Liberty. You can find me on YouTube and Rumble. I'm an anarcho-capitalist, which is basically like the most extreme form of libertarian. So I find myself in a very weird position because I hate all nation states, so fuck the state of Israel. And yet, what I mostly find is an old trope of Marxist organizations supporting an oppressed class of other socialists, spewing a bunch of communist propaganda and bullshit history, and very little people actually understand the conflict. They just kind of understand that pre-programmed oppressed oppressor narrative. And so despite the fact that, I'm very critical of Israel, and then I think there are a lot of things we should be doing to try and stop them and better things, I find myself more often than not trying to combat socialist agitprop, misinformation, and just all around bad takes that you should always expect from anybody that labels themselves a socialist or anything further left.
Okay, there we go. Thank you for the introduction. To the bottom of Destiny and to the left of Prime, we'll get to you. Crowd favorite, Loaderbox. Introduce yourself, my man.
Hey, I'm Lonerbox. I generally lean more towards the Palestinian side, although I do believe Israelis have a right to live where they live now and live there in peace. I think for Palestinians, I think the question is fundamentally, it's not about who has an innate right to what land or tracing back some arbitrary point in history. To me, it's a question of human rights. I think Palestinians have a right to self-determination, to civil liberties. I think refugees have a right either to return or to reparations or restitution. I think they are owed a lot of reconciliation. How we get from here to there, I don't know. I guess we'll figure out in the panel.
There we go. Thank you for the introduction. To the right of Loaderbox and below Dylan Burns, we've got Prime. Canes? Which one is it?
Whatever you like.
Okay,
Thanks for having me here. I hope you all can hear me well. Just take a moment to thank my fellow contestants. Hey, Scott. Loner Box, haven't seen you in a while. Tom, I love you. I miss you. SDL, what's up? And nice to meet you, Quibble. And thank you for inviting me so much. So my name is Prime Kai, PrimeCays. You can find me on Twitch and YouTube. And simply put, my position is free Palestine from the river to the sea. Thank you.
My man. Oh, wait. Below Loner and diagonal to Prime, we've got Ted Kiz. So my bad. Quibbles over coffee. Go ahead and introduce yourself, please.
Cool. I'm Quibbles over coffee. I'm broadly pro-Israel. I'm not sure if the question was in reference to what America should do or what Israel should do. In terms of what America should do, we should continue to fund the Iron Dome. We should probably try to, I can list a bunch of different things, but I don't want to do that now. And then in terms of what Israel should do, I think they're going to have to do, unfortunately, an occupation of the Gaza Strip.
All right, there we go. Thank you for the introduction. To our penultimate contestant, to the right of Quibbles, we've got SDL. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Mom.
Hey everyone, I'm Aiden. I run the channel Stockton Left, and yeah, I'm pretty pro-Palestinian. I think the root cause of the violence here is the occupation. You don't have to support Hamas to say that. The only way that you're going to see a long-term end to this is an end to the occupation. There's a reason that though Israel has bombed Gaza 5 odd times in the past 2 decades, shit hasn't worked. The vast majority of those deaths, something like 80%, are not even military-aged men, much less militants, but not even military-aged men. I think this is pretty close to ethnic cleansing. Just one last stat before I go: 1.4 million people have been displaced here. We bombed Serbia for displacing 200,000.
Thank you for that introduction. Last but not least, Tom motherfucking Flu. Bro, why can't I read? Foolery. There we go. Introduce yourself.
Yeah, my name's Tom. I go by Tom Fuller Show on YouTube and Kick. I don't know that I'm pro one side over the other. Definitely out of all the people here, I'm probably the least educated on this topic, but I'm arrogant enough to show up for a panel anyways, and so I'm here to solve this crisis with you fine people.
Thank you for the introduction. With that, ladies and gentlemen, let's get on with the motherfucking show. So, question number 1. And by the way, let's see. Listen, if you feel the inclination to jump in, you could jump in. You know what I mean?
Just
Fuck
chilling,
it.
okay?
It's long form. You know what I mean? It's long
Yeah,
form.
is it? Yeah.
We don't mind it this episode. Okay. So, following the October 7th attack and the subsequent counterattack by Israel, can violence or armed resistance ever be justified as a means of achieving political goals for either side in this ongoing conflict? Let me start with you, Loner. What's your take on this?
Yeah, I think Palestinians have a right to use some degree of violence. It's a fucking military occupation. I don't think that means that you're okay to go and kill civilians in a festival in the middle of a field. I much prefer the kind of like Mandela ANC style of going for like sabotage of infrastructure rather than targeting people, because then you don't have to deal with the problem of having to spend like 100 years reconciling for all the pain and death that you've caused, like trying to end the occupation. Israelis, I think they have a right to go after Hamas. I don't know what proportionality looks like exactly, but yeah, they have some right to do something. They can't just sit there and take it.
All right, Fabian, go ahead. And by the way, feel free to fucking cut each other off if somebody says something you
Okay.
disagree with, right? Like
Tom,
this
we can
ain't
hear
one
you
of those,
typing. Tom, we can hear you typing, just so you know.
Yeah, it's true. Just
Thank
mute
you.
when you're typing, please. All right, Fabian, go ahead.
Yeah, so I largely agree, right? I think justified is a question of is a different question of than what should someone do, and I think we should maybe like separate those two things, right? Like I agree that like attacking infrastructure, government installations, government employees is something that Hamas, maybe not Hamas, because Hamas has kind of like lost most of their their rights, justifiably so. But Palestinian organizations that haven't committed terrorist attacks have that right. But it's not a good tactic, right? Like it's a really bad idea. It's not going to help anybody. And if you're a consequentialist in your framework, we can still hear someone else typing. If you're a consequentialist in your framework, then you kind of have to look at that and go, okay, well, if it's only going to cause more problems for everybody, then you would probably have to say that it's unjustified. So anybody that's saying that it is justified, it's very interesting because I would then question what their moral framework is, because they're kind of proving to not be a utilitarian or consequentialist, and so I'm wondering where they're getting that justification from. But yeah.
So
I'm just curious, is there anyone on the panel who thinks that it's a good idea or justifiable to attack civilians?
it depends on who you define as civilians. This part's very important.
Just
right?
regular,
Like,
normal Israelis, people living on a kibbutz.
again, you have to define what that means, because we can understand that the settlers are armed, the settlers are attacking and clearing out villages themselves, right? And someone can call them a civilian, but they are not. So they are active participants in this violence, And so if the
So you're saying,
Palestinians were if the I'm going to answer your question. If the
yeah,
Palestinians were to attack those settlers, armed settlers who shoot, kill, rape, murder these individuals, yes, it's perfectly justified to fight back.
so I just want to be clear. Are you saying when you say settlers, are you saying solely the people in the West Bank? Are you saying people in the West Bank also Israel proper? Are you saying West Bank, Golan Heights? What are you saying?
That's like I said. This is a good question because, as you're properly pointing out, not all settlers have equal like access to Palestinians, and not all settlers are even armed. Like this is a spectrum. So I'm not exactly sure where that line is, but certainly the ones who are actively
Well, it's a relevant line. You should have an
armed.
answer to the question of where the line
No,
is, right? You're
no.
saying,
Sorry, I'm not going to pigeonhole. I understand a spectrum of violence that's being done here. Some people are doing it more
right, but I'm
passively.
asking whether or not
Others
you're
more
willing
active.
to condemn the
Hold on,
murder of children.
hold on. I'll answer your question. Excuse me. So I can
Okay.
understand that there's a difference between these two. Now, if you're asking me exactly where is the line, no, I don't know exactly where the line is, but there are active militants, settler militants, and they certainly are justified targets.
Yeah, but that's
Can I-
not to
let
do
me
with
ask
them
you-
being
wait, wait, wait,
settlers.
wait,
That's to
stop,
do with
stop,
them
stop,
being.
stop. Wait,
Hold
hold
on.
on. Let me ask a clarifying question. Okay, just okay. So for the purposes of this conversation, I think all of us can agree that when somebody says civilians, I think all of us agree that we're talking about citizens of Israel that are not engaged in direct military or violent confrontation. So for instance, I would be shocked if anybody in here was opposed to Palestinians in the West Bank enacting violence on aggressive settlers using firearms to clear out camps. I think everybody in here would probably say there are justifications for that type of counterattack. I think the point of the question was to get more to like, for instance, the people that were partying at the festival, would these types of settlers be okay to enact violence
not
against
settlers.
on behalf of the Palestinians?
Stephen, you're incorrect. Those weren't settlers. Those were people in Israel proper.
What?
Those people were in Israel proper. They weren't in Gaza.
I'm sorry. I understand what you're saying.
you're fine.
There are some people, a lot
There are
of
people in the
Palestinians.
West Bank. That's
Right,
certainly
hold
true.
on. I'm sorry. Yeah, I'm sorry. One sec. Just to be clear, there are some people that would consider all Israeli citizens settlers. So that's what I'm saying. Like the wording that we use. Yeah, I'm just saying civilians that aren't engaged in direct military occupation. Because when people say violence is okay against settlers, there are a lot of people that consider every Israeli citizen a settler. So that's what I'm trying to clarify. Right.
Yeah,
so
fair.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay.
Thank you for coming in
I
and
appreciate
having
that.
to give definitions because leftists want to subvert things. Got
I
it.
want to
There's a-
ask
there's
you.
a second
No, I want to
component
ask you,
that-
Prime. When it comes to definitions of settlers, I mean, you said so when you say settlers, you always qualified it with settlers who are engaging in violence and attacking Palestinians. Well, that doesn't matter if they're a settler or not. Like even if a civilian does that, you're okay to defend yourself against
No
them.
longer a
So I know legally, just being a settler, like a non-violent settler, makes you a civilian. You're a civilian if you're a settler in the West Bank. That's like international law. Do you agree with that? Or do you think the settlers, like, it doesn't matter if they're attacking Palestinians or not, just them being there makes them fair game for attack? What do you think?
Yeah, it's a tough question. I think overall, I think that being part of the settlement movement is a violence being done to the Palestinian people, right? Like you are justifying and participating in the system.
Just as a
that
real quick clarifying question, I'm sorry. Just when you say settler movement, do you mean only people in the West Bank, or do you mean all Israelis?
I guess right now I'll just talk about the West Bank. I'm more familiar with that rather than like what's happening in Israel proper. So I'll just speak to that. So you are like actively participating in that, and I don't want to whitewash that, but I don't know how we can just like as outside observers say it's okay to shoot like some kid who happens to have grown up in a settlement. I don't see how that can be a proper target.
You kind of showed your own contradiction, though. Right?
How?
Well, like you're saying there's a line that you can't define of where someone stops being a civilian, and then you said, but if they're participating in the settler movement, well, they're not. So like what is it? Is it a person that goes to homestead property in an area and chooses to build a home? Right? Are they no longer a civilian because they're an adult participating in the settler movement, or is it, or do they have to be someone that is actively armed? Like You kind of can't have your cake and eat it too, and kind of like
I'm
wink,
not
nudge,
trying
nudge.
to.
Violence is okay against all of those people,
Hold on,
but then be like,
hold on.
but totally not okay.
What did I just say? I made it very specific here. I said that like I don't see how we can justify a person who is simply there, not actually doing active violence, right? Like, or sorry, shooting someone, right? Because to be clear,
Right.
right?
Like I said, you contradicted
actively
yourself
attacking
because
the
you also said
individual, right?
being in the cell.
Yeah, sure, whatever. Yeah, sure. But anyway, I said that those individuals who aren't doing that, like I don't know how we can justify attacking them, right? So that would be problematic.
What do you mean by I don't know how we can justify it? It almost seems like you wish that you could find a way to justify attacking these people, but that you can't actually logically
just said
say
he
it.
wasn't
Like,
going to justify.
do you just mean
it.
it's
Not that,
unjustified?
he doesn't justify it.
All
He's
I'm
saying he's not
doing,
justifying
Sky,
it.
nice, yeah. So all I'm doing is understanding that there's that we as observers want to look to see who is the
Mhm.
good guy and who is the bad guy. We want to establish lines and draw and draw them in the sand. I understand that these things aren't true in conflict zones. That there are injustices that happen all the time to various degrees. Some of them might require an armed response, right? And others, it, I, I don't know, especially for the Palestinians. I don't know what they can do, but that an armed response wouldn't be necessary or justified. Simple as that.
Okay, you also said that.
I mean, it's as
just
simple as that, but
being
can
in
you
the
just say it
West
would be unjustified to attack people that have not attacked anyone else, that have simply been a quote part of the settler movement and have built homes there?
I'm sorry.
That would be unjustified to attack those people. Can you just say it is completely unjustified to attack people who have done nothing other than protect their homes, armed people that have protected their homes, but have not actively gone out and attacked any Palestinian people that have just moved into that area? Is it unjustified to attack them?
What does protected their homes mean, right? So if a Palestinian,
Yeah, see, this is
comes
exactly
back
what I'm
to
talking about. Is that like you can't just
I'm sorry,
unequivocally
things are
say
more
it would be
complicated.
wrong to do that?
You won't.
No, it's not
put me in a
complicated.
black and
You
white
can't
line.
kill
simply won't
peaceful
do that.
people.
It won't happen to me. I get you, Scott. I have
Yeah, you won't
experience
go
with
in
how
a
you
box.
operate.
You
But
won't.
that
Okay,
won't
wait,
work
okay,
for me.
hold on, wait. Okay, hold on.
Right, so
Okay,
you
hold
won't-
on.
you won't say it's wrong.
Wait. Okay, hold on. So just as a quick thing, okay? The steelman argument for Prime Kai's position is, let's say that you're a bunch of Arabs, you live in an area, IDF forces come in, gun you down, kill everybody, blow your shit up, and then other settlers, under the protection of the IDF soldiers that murdered or cleansed all of the ethnic Arabs that live there, now they build properties and homes and they live there, and then the IDF pulls back. Are the people that are now building houses on the bodies of your dead family members, are they enacting any form of violence, or are they safe despite the fact that they were put there with violence? That's like the steelman version of Prime Kai's argument.
Yeah, so I mean, if we take that, like, I would be all for. I would love if people took a libertarian position of understanding property rights and actually went in at an individual basis and said that certain individuals had their homes stolen and that it's stolen land, and that the first thing you do is say, "Hey, look, I have the deed to this home. Please move off of this land. This is legally mine, and you have no right to be here." And then we escalated until a form where eventually we had to go to violence because they refused to move. Yeah, I would love that if that was the case, but I know that that's not the steelman position, because that would require Prime Guys to be a libertarian.
Yeah, can we have a
So
clarification?
that can't be the steelman position. That would be mine.
Wait, hold on. That is literally the steelman position. Is that there might be quote unquote civilian settlements in the West Bank, but those are put there on the auspices of IDF violence, right? That's the whole point.
So, Stephen, where would that be?
And the solution to that would be individual.
What specific
property
location
rights,
are you
right?
talking about?
Like, I'm all for that.
I'm talking about the expansion of settlements in the West Bank.
Right. What specific expansion? What specific settlement?
I don't know the name of the specific settlement, but the territory of the West Bank wasn't within the original Israeli borders defined after the war
So
of
are you saying?
1948.
Are you saying that the
every single Israeli settlement, all of them, literally every single one. The only reason why that territory exists is because Israel has drawn armistice lines over it after a prior war, right? The 6-Day War.
So are you saying the influx of Jews, or are you saying the Area C as a concept, right? Like the Area C as in like it is controlled both militarily and civilly by the Israeli government is a separate question than whether or not there's an influx of Jewish people. So which one of those are you discussing?
Every single Jewish settlement in the West Bank is.
But when you say settlement there, like my point is, like, there's a difference between like if people purchase land, this is Fabian's point, people purchase land gainfully, rightfully from people, from Palestinians, and then they purchase that land and then they live on that land. Like, what's the problem there as a Jewish person? Like, why is it different for a Jew to do that than for a Muslim to do it?
Because you're making an assumption that I think maybe is, again, another part of this socialist agit prop and murky waters that so many people have to dig through in order to understand what actually happened. Is that, yes, you are definitely describing the way some settlements have been established. Also, other settlements have been established by people like kind of cheekily, peacefully moving in and then causing problems, and then they waiting for the Palestinians to attack, and then wiping out that section, and then being like, "Oh, all this new land is up for grabs," right? And then there are other sections where individuals have gone to Palestinians, purchased land, and then moved in and lived in that land. And there's no stolen land involved in this process whatsoever, unless you believe that a Jew existing on the land taints the land itself.
Yeah, but I think Prime is saying that he doesn't believe in violence against these people unless they're actively involved in violence themselves, not just by being on the land in and of itself. Because if he said that,
I would have assumed that as well. And then I was like, hey, can you say that? And then he wouldn't.
Fabian, that's not quite true, because there are examples where it actually has been stolen land. So the most famous example, the most recent one, was in 2017. It was in Mona, right? So that was an example of land that was just literally taken.
I said there are examples that there are that aren't, right?
Squatting.
Like you could go all the way back. You could go all the way back to like the British Mandate and say, and if you really looked, enough historically, and there were documents, right? Like the Britain controlled areas, that had been left from the Ottoman Empire. I'm sure there's tons of land there that has been stolen from somebody or was public unused land. Everything ultimately, if you want to be properly ethical, has to go by case basis.
Yeah, so
there's a difference between my point is there's a difference between an outpost and an actual settlement. A settlement is a place that there are like genuine property rights of the people there. An outpost does not. So there are outposts that exist. Again,
okay. Well, just to be clear, those property rights are devolved under military occupation, though. Exactly. That's why they're not recognized internationally. That's why they're illegal. They're illegal to Israel, but they're illegal to everyone else.
Okay.
I think as a quick so just as a real quick
your whole thing is anarchist. I don't give a fuck about Israel or anybody else's.
Buying land and territory, right, is not necessarily a bad thing. Buying land and territory that you have like an unrecognized military occupation over is quite a bit different, especially when you're buying land from people that everybody agrees you've ethnically cleansed already from their homes and territory.
God,
everybody agrees you've ethnically cleansed.
I just want to try to address your point directly. What I was trying to say, when you asked me that question, right, like, will you sign on to this statement? I wanted to show just how difficult it is just to make any sort of blanket statement. So when you said, because before you said an Israeli who is defending their home, right, is that person different from a person who goes out and attacks Palestinians in another village? Well, what I was trying to say is, if a Palestinian comes back to that home and says, "Hey, this is my place," and that person, the Israeli, pulls out a gun on them, and then the Palestinian escalates, is that justified? So I was just trying to
hold on. Let me be as fair as I can.
Perfectly what you're saying, and
let me be as fair as I possibly can.
And in fact, I'm signing on more to what you're the homesteading libertarian view of this, right? So I'm trying to build a bridge here. Go ahead.
Right. If I can be as fair as I possibly can, right? Will you sign on to this statement? A person purchases property from a Palestinian, has a deed that shows that they purchased property from a Palestinian to move into an area for whatever reason that they desire, because they like that. Maybe they just fucking love Palestinian people, right? Maybe they're just fucking, some super hardcore Tel Aviv lefty that just, lives in solidarity with the Palestinians, right? And wants to live amongst them. And they purchase land, right? And then they live in their home and they have firearms, and they've never used those firearms unless someone came in to raid their home they gainfully purchased. Is it wrong to commit violence against those people? Is it unjustified in that specific example? Okay, thank you. So we have at least some area where there's some people in the West Bank that it is unjustified to attack by your definition.
Absolutely,
Which
yeah.
means that a blanket
Okay.
attack on quote unquote settlers in the West Bank is not justified.
Absolutely.
It needs to be
you
looked
think
at
that those people have
individually.
done
We need to
something
look
wrong?
at property disputes.
Do you think that those Jews have done something wrong, Prime?
Which Jews?
The Jews who are purchasing that land.
You
From
mean
a
the
Palestinian,
Jews?
as he just laid it out? From a Palestinian, certainly not. I mean, if a Palestinian wants to sell their land, then yes. I mean,
Okay,
assuming
so
it's like
if
a
in
democratic
Area
right, but
C,
not a
so-
gunpoint. Yeah.
So I just want to clarify: if in Area C, a Jew wants to purchase land, and they are a citizen of Israel, you are okay with them purchasing that land?
Yeah, if they got if they
Okay.
can get it, if they're not, if like it's a fair deal, obviously, right? If there's like pressure on this Palestinian to sell, like the IDF is saying, we're going to clear this place out, and then some Jewish settler comes in and says, "Oh, I'll give you some money for this," right? In that case, it's not so much. But if it's just a regular,
and that would be a
sale,
case
then
like-
Absent coercion. Absent
So
coercion, but like
coercion.
absent coercion. But there's always going to be like some limited level of coercion.
I just want to
think,
clarify
towards
what we're
the state
talking
of
about.
Israel.
We're talking about Jewish people purchasing territory with no coercion from a group of people under indefinite military occupation. Just to be clear, that's what you're saying.
This is the problem I have with
In
this,
Area
though,
C,
is that
correct.
it's kind of impossible to remove the coercion from the element when there's IDF soldiers on the beat, when the Palestinians in occupied territory are going to be treated by a separate set of laws than Israeli citizens, and they're going to be treated differently from the government than Israeli citizens. I think that state of conditions in and of itself is coercive to the Palestinians to make them want to leave and go to maybe to the diaspora overseas if their families living in France or in Germany or the United States.
To speak to
Yeah,
that briefly,
but
I
so-
think the rate of approval
Are there any-
for building on Palestinian property is something like 2%. Like Israel overwhelmingly denies the ability of Palestinians to build their own shit on their own land because they don't want more Palestinians there. But like
Where are you
it's so
talking
obvious. In
Where?
the West Bank. They don't have control over
I
Gaza.
believe that number. I believe that statistic is on Jerusalem. If you're talking about Jerusalem, that's certainly that. I mean, I don't remember the exact statistics off the top of my head. But that wouldn't shock me in Jerusalem. But that's a very different conversation than West Bank writ large. There's
My
lots of stuff that's
understanding is
happening in
that-
Ramallah, for example, right?
Do you think
My
that-
understanding is that for the West Bank, any sort of construction has to be done under the approval of the Israeli military because it's a military, they're the controlling government of that area, right? Not just in East Jerusalem, but in literally all parts of the West Bank. No?
Not in all of it. In Area C, that's true. In Area B, it is militarily controlled by Israel. It's not civilly controlled. So there are certain cases in Area B in which that would be the case. In Area A, that is not true at all. So in most of the cities, which the majority of people live in West Bank, that is not the case.
All right. Does anybody else has anything to say before we move on to the next question? Any last
I
statements?
just want to remind everybody that in the beginning I said that Palestinians can bomb Israeli government buildings. I just, in case anyone accuses me of being too pro-state of Israel, I
Just
think
to-
in
just
that
to read-
specific example, yeah.
Just to read the permitting thing, it's 2% of Area C, so the area under Israeli control. But so, like, again, that's the sort of example of the coercion here, that if Area C expands and if Palestinians can't build there, then the amount of area that they get to control gets smaller and smaller and smaller. There's
we have
clearly a structural violence going on here that doesn't justify violence against individuals, but maybe does justify violence against the structures. So
I'm curious. Do you have the numbers for
What do you mean by
the
violence against
Israeli
structures
approval
there?
process?
Isn't it like 94%? I feel like I've seen these numbers before. It's very, very,
Yeah.
very high on the Israeli side.
Yeah,
It's
just,
like
can you
the exact inverse.
send like where
I also
you're
think it'd
getting
be
that
worth-
Area C one?
I think it'd be
I was
worth
gonna
knowing
ask
as
you- okay,
well.
just-
What percentage of settlers, like settler land, is actually just Jews purchasing the land from Palestinians who own the land? Because I thought wasn't quite a lot of this land that was devolved to settlements actually unregistered land that was obviously taken under Israel during the occupation. Do you know?
I mean, like most
I
of
don't know the
Israel,
answer to that,
well,
but I
most
know.
of current day Israel, Palestine, Assyria, Palestine, whatever you want, was just unused land. Like most of it is public land that no one's been living on. Like
That's what I
there's
thought.
A lot
Yeah,
of,
I thought it was-
There's a
yeah.
large portion of Israel that is unairable until people come there and build infrastructure, or there are swamps, or there is desert, right? And specifically in the West Bank, yes, the land is a little bit better, but it's still. I mean, like when you look at the best maps available in terms of like as the Zionist movement come in and with each process, there's still tons of public domain land that nobody's living on, and then people go and live on it.
But that's why when we're talking this argument about Jews buying up land from Palestinians individually, like maybe even under occupation, maybe you can make an argument for that. But I feel like in most cases, it's settlers who are taking this land because that land was taken by Israel in 1967, and that's where the majority of it comes from. And I'd say that so the majority of cases, that's why settler presence would be unethical, right?
Yeah. So what's your view on what should happen on that land?
Either land swapped because those people are not going to want to live in a Palestinian state, or you withdraw. Probably I'd withdraw the outposts 100%.
I'm saying prior to the settlements, like prior to Jews moving in there, what
I think it would have been
to that land?
So in 67.
Yeah.
Well, I think initially it wasn't even. Hey, wait, Jesus Christ! I think even initially it wasn't even legal by Israeli standards for them. They just went there of their own accord. They just wandered in there themselves and kind of did it independently. So I think if Israel had maybe just kind of enforced some rules there and said, wait, this isn't actually like going to be ours forever.
Why is it on Israel to do?
Because they're occupying the territory. Okay,
so it's Israel's job to forcibly remove any Jews who want to go into the area?
Yeah, to occupy territory if they want to like a path to statehood for their neighbors, then yeah. Unless they just want to have the situation we have now, which is you expand settlements for like 50, 60 years.
Okay, so it is your stance that in order for Palestine to be a separate country, it has to be an ethno-state with no Jews?
I don't say it needs to be an ethno-state. First of all, okay, wait. Do you think these settlers would want to live in a Palestinian state?
Well, I'm asking. Like these are not Israelis.
I'm not saying it needs to be an ethno-state. I'm saying it's not about they could be the same ethnicity. It's that you're settling in occupied territory. Okay, where the people who live there don't have self-determination. They have no say over.
You wouldn't make the same claim about all of the Palestinians who post Nakba were leaving Israel proper and going into the West Bank. So I'm curious, what's the difference there between Jews moving into the West Bank and Palestinians moving into the West Bank? And why?
Because one group moved there as refugees, the other one moved there as settlers.
So is your claim that the Jews in the 1940s and 1950s and 1960s were not refugees?
The ones in 67, the ones who moved into the West Bank, I don't think they were refugees, no.
I'm asking prior to that.
Were they?
At the beginning of the founding of Israel.
You can ask me a completely different question if you want. No, yeah, I think the Mizrahi and North African Jews were refugees, but that's a completely different question.
Okay. Well, and even refugees don't have the right to. Even refugees don't have the right to go and like take other people's lands. Like that's not.
You don't have a right to. Yeah, I don't know if refugees. Yeah, but like this is again. So refugees, I would imagine you have a right to be a citizen in Israel because that's like a country that wants to take Jewish people. So.
Why is it such a crazy idea, the idea that an occupying state, while occupying territory, should stop its own citizens or its own people from going there and settling on the territory of the displaced?
Yeah, my point is
during World War II, we had the standard in Germany, and we just started having random like American nationalist colonies all across Germany. We would expect the American government to expel them.
Or when we occupied Iraq and Afghanistan, would it have been okay for me to just go in there and like set up a fucking little tent?
The point that I'm trying to make is that I don't like this idea that Jews are by definition Israeli. That's a bad idea, right?
No one's making that argument.
They should stop Palestinian.
No, you kind of are.
They should stop Palestinian Arabs who want to go be settlers too.
No, like you're trying to make it. You're trying to make it. No, you're trying to make it an ethnicity argument. I'm saying I can apply this to anywhere. In occupied fucking Afghanistan or Iraq, it wouldn't have been okay for me to go there and just set up house under that regime because same thing with
no problem.
West Bank.
You seem to have no problem with an influx of Palestinians into this area, whether it's in 48, whether it's in 67. But you seem to have a very large problem
because they were forced there.
I seem to have no problem with delineating the difference between settlers and refugees. Yeah, I don't have much of a problem making that separation.
So I have a question. I have a question. Quibbles. I have a question.
Yeah, go for it.
Just, there seems to be. I'm trying to understand. Is it an anti-Semitic thing? And I'm not accusing anybody here of anti-Semitism. Just more kind of like a broad cultural thing. Is it an anti-Semitic thing, or is it a timeline thing, like a certain distance in terms of time? Because like the way that I see it is like I agree, right? Like individual property that was owned, that in 48 you had fleeing Palestinian Arabs, if they can prove or show in any capacity that like they owned this portion of land and that it wasn't just unused land, that it's their land, not the settlers that came afterwards land. But it seems to be that there's like this weird thing where Israel is held to this like super libertarian property idea perspective that like no other country is held to. Because like, as far as I'm concerned, by this logic, and I agree, most of you probably won't, all of northern Georgia, every white motherfucker that lives there needs to get off of their land right now, because then the Cherokee Nation in 1850 that was forced to walk the Trail of Tears, they homesteaded land, they had a post office, they had property deeds, they did everything they could to prove that that is their land. And so like, you don't, like, if you live in northern Georgia, you're not just on stolen
I gotta
land,
stop
like
you here.
stolen land with a lease.
You know that
I don't
every
think
lefty
that-
on here is pro
I don't think-
reparations. I
the answer-
guarantee it, right? Like,
The answer is
like
no, I don't think-
Prime Kai or Loner Box, do you oppose reparations?
Reparations is a totally
He's
separate
asking the
issue.
question to you because you're going to agree with him, right? And we're stepping in to
No, I'm
disagree.
not going to agree
So
with
do
him.
either the
I'm not
lefties?
going to agree with him.
Oh
Dr.
my
Left, I am not going to agree with him. The answer to the question is no, it is not anti-Semitic for people to be concerned about the Palestinian right to lands, even post-48, even post-67. There is a very real concern that there was a large number of people who have been forced out during the Nakba. There is a very real concern that, yes, Palestinians have a right to live in this area. What I contend with is I think this idea that Jews don't have a right to live in the West Bank, which is a very important component of our historic lands. I think that is a crazy idea, and I think that it is just as absurd to say it about Jews as it is to say it about Palestinians.
Okay, first of all, no one gives a fuck about what your important historical land, but also, sorry,
actually answering my question. Like, Sockdown Left was actually answering my question, and you just latched onto the anti-Semitic remark. Like, is there any way Sockdown Left could finish? Because like, I think reparations are something different.
But
yeah,
I mean, it sounds like
Squibbles,
Lonerbox was gonna give the same answer, that historical land, whatever, is not the important thing here. Like, Israel is unique in part because what other countries are doing settlement like Israel? Part of the reason that we talk about it this way is it's so rare nowadays. A lot of settlements like this died in 1960 during decolonization, but Israel's didn't. Israel's has been going on for another 50, 60 years. That's why we only talk about Israel in that sense. People did talk about stuff like this, about like French colonies and British colonies in random far-off countries where they set up their own little tiny ethno-state of British only or French only, and they get to run the whole country from there. Yeah, like that.
Obviously, obviously that's substantively different than French colonialism.
Just hold on. Just as a quick thing I'd like to throw in here too. I also think it's okay, we can meaningfully talk differently about the Palestinian peoples, because while the rules of the world might have been conquest and conquer and take the territory, and I think it's 1945, like the UN has an official charter that a whole bunch of countries around the world sign on to that actually like explicitly gave people the right to self-determination, for people to live on land and to exist there in a way that like the Cherokees or native people in North America didn't. So I think it's worth speaking in a world where all of us try to abide roughly by international law. The UN Charter explicitly, in Chapter 1, Article 1, whatever, like explicitly states for people to have a right to a self-determination as people in a land. So that would make it a little bit different than like North American stuff.
All right, hold on. Wait, Tom, hold on. I want to shift gears slightly. Okay, we've been on this topic for a bit. On the same like sort of topic, I want to ask you guys this, right? Do you believe in a two-state solution? If yes, what are the rightful borders between Israel and Palestine? Quibbles, I want to start with you.
Okay, I want a clarification. When you say believe in, do you mean I want it, or does that mean like I believe it's possible?
I wouldn't say
whatever
want
you
it.
Want it to
like,
be.
Do you think that would be the best solution if there would be two states?
I think the best solution to try to get to in the period of the next 40 years is eventually to have Gaza be an independent country, have much of the West Bank, but not all of the West Bank, be an independent country, and have particularly the areas that are closest to the border of the settlements folded into Israel proper, and have that be a third country.
Okay.
But I think it's going to happen tomorrow, and I think that it's going to take a lot of struggle, and I think it's going to require that there's an occupation of Gaza for a long time to get there, and I think it's going to require that, unfortunately, many hundreds of thousands of people are going to die. I think it's going to be screwed for a really long time. Yeah.
So when you say the settlements should become part of Israel proper, I guess that would also mean the West Bank would be kind of disconnected, right? Because those settlements run in between Palestinian communities.
That's why I clarified.
Yeah, so thank you for just explaining why people are getting settlements for reasons that are not anti-Semitism and ethnicity. That's fine.
That's why I clarified. I was talking about the ones that
now we know.
Specifically on the border, right? There's the overwhelming majority of settlers are within a mile of the border. Something like 90% are literally within a mile of the border. So those settlements that are very close to the border, that are there primarily for fiscal reasons, I would put them in a separate category than the ones that are there primarily for religious reasons, which are much further inland.
I don't know. So, even in Camp David, the settlements then running between communities were prevalent enough that it would have kind of disconnected the West Bank. So, I can't imagine a settlement now would not include that, though, unless you wanted to dismantle some of them.
The answer is that there's going to be some number of Jews that are folded into that Palestinian West Bank, and there's going to be some number of Palestinian non-Jews that are folded into Israel proper as a result of this. This is going to be complicated. There's a reason it's going to take 40 years to get to it, but I do think that that's the closest to a reasonable solution that I can think of. And again, it is not happening tomorrow, and again, it's going to be incredibly bloody to get to it.
So I would say two things. The first, the only ethical solution that doesn't violate anyone's rights is that the state of Israel, the nation state of Israel, dissolves, and that private property rights and anarchism is given to everybody. But kumbaya, la la land, fucking utopia shit, right? So I would say that a proper, a better situation tactically towards reestablishing property rights would have to be a two-state solution, much like was offered. I would say 67 borders is probably the closest we'll get. I'm gonna just disagree with many of the pro-Israel stands in terms of the West Bank areas. I think those should be under the Palestinian Authority, and most of those people will probably have to flee, because when you have a majority Muslim country and you're a Jew, you can pretty much expect that that they'll kill you, because that's just.
Can I ask you a quick clarifying question? Because I'm actually not sure. When people say, just as a quick question, I'm not sure if you guys know this. When people say 67 borders, do they mean like 48 borders, or do they mean like post 6-Day War borders? Like, what are they talking about when they say
pre-67 borders?
Pre-67. Okay, gotcha. Just make sure. Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. Sorry. So 67 borders pre. Yeah. So I would say that, as well as like what was offered in 2019 to the Palestinian Authority that they rejected, which is 67 borders and joint control over all holy sites in Jerusalem, was offered, and so has been offered multiple times, I believe. And so like that, I think that's probably the best deal. Yeah, the 2019 like perfect deal or whatever, that was just that
the
never
Trump
got to
deal.
talks. Yeah, it never went to talks. Yeah, the Trump deal. They just immediately were like, "No, fuck you."
Okay, everyone, Google the map for the Trump peace plan, and ask yourselves why the Palestinians weren't interested in that. Just Google the map.
Am I incorrect? Am I incorrect that it was? That the
have you seen them?
Not 67.
The Trump deal was 2020, but there's a good reason Palestinians were never going to accept this, right? Have you seen the map?
People.
It looks like someone just like flicked paint on the Israel map, and you've got fucking Palestinian territory, right?
People have literally posted
I'll look
of like subdividing California with vision for peace up top because of how fucked it is, where you carve out like the top, the 8 red counties in California, and it looks the fucking same. It's a joke.
So what I'm referring to is before a map, before any deal, before anything was put forward, right? Trump said, I don't know that it was Trump specifically. I can't remember exactly who it was, but they were speaking about 67 borders and joint control. And then the Palestinian Authority, without ever seeing the deal, said that they needed to reject it.
Just as a quick thing, I just look this up real quick. Looking at the borders that were proposed for this, the amount of territory here, a lot of the Palestinians seem significantly less than what existed from 48 to 67, and it looks like the Palestinians weren't even consulted when it came to doing this proposal. So it's not surprising that anybody.
Yeah, it was an untenable solution.
It's a hilarious one. Regardless,
the map itself,
the 2019 deal is not the point of what I'm saying. I'm just
like every deal since Geneva has just been total horseshit. Would never happen.
That was the deal.
I will say, so there's a couple of things.
Yeah. I have no problem. Hold on, please, without interrupting, real quick. Let me just take this L publicly.
Fabian, 1 second. We'll stalk it. Let him finish, and then you could go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Okay. There's a couple of things. The first thing that I will say is that the idea of having, I mean, this is exactly what Letterbox was saying earlier, and he's totally right about it. The idea of having these territories that are not actually connected is a really dangerous idea. This is why I think that the idea of Gaza being the same country as the West Bank, I think is just untenable. I don't think it's a good idea. But the second component that I do think is worth pointing out is that when you look at maps like this, it's very similar to like the Electoral College. Republicans will constantly look at like an Electoral College and be like, "Ooh, look at the whole thing is red, right? Except these tiny little cities." Well, yeah, but the cities are blue, right? So like similarly, well, yeah, if you look like at a map like that, what it's saying there is the majority of the areas that people don't live in are going to end up being under Israeli control, which makes sense from a military perspective, because from a military perspective, that is somewhere that you're able to shoot off rockets from. And so it has a lot of military implications, but has very little implications in terms of the daily life of many of the people who are actually living in cities.
Is there anybody who thinks that the West
I
Bank
don't
and
support this.
Gaza should be one state while separated like that?
Say it again.
Is there anybody who does think that the West Bank and Gaza should be one state while separated like that?
Yeah, that was what the Trump peacebound was. Yeah, that was up until like this month. The broad view of a lot of people. It's very recent that people believe that Gaza and the West Bank need to be considered to be like separate things. That is not something that either the Palestinian or the Israeli side were in support of up until this month, and that's pretty remarkably changing. I'd not heard other people talk about that until this month.
What is the three-state solution gaining traction amongst politicians in Israel and
Yeah.
Palestine?
I would say so.
Well, I mean, I
Certainly-
figured that they were
Is
going to
any
like draw
solution
borders to where they
gaining
would actually
traction amongst
connect in some
politicians?
I would
way,
say-
or that they would be.
Well, yeah, senior Israelis are talking about just kicking all the Palestinians out, and they've drafted
So, hold on,
plans and
I just-
costed it out.
hold on.
But that's the plan that's
Hold on,
rising in their minds.
So
Or
real
then-
quick, I just wanted to go back. Look, real quick. I had not looked at a map. I had only read from sources without looking at a map. I was wrong. I just wanted to publicly take that L because I don't want to bullshit. And if I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Right? That's all I wanted to say. Continue.
Sigma.
It doesn't have to
Okay,
get quiet after that. Like, you don't have to make this worse for me, guys. You know what I mean?
This moment will never come again, so I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy it.
We're-
But
Bitch, I've
Rick
done
Taylor,
that
yeah.
like multiple times on your show. Don't even.
I know. I'm just.
I always take my L's publicly, all right? I don't try and like wash over them. Fuck off.
You're good.
All right. Let me ask you this, right? To what extent, and this is something that we've seen plenty, and this is something that I'm sure a lot of you guys have spoken about as well, but to what extent does media bias, both internationally and within the region, perpetuate or exacerbate the conflict? And how can this be rectified for a fair representation of the situation? Because I'm sure a lot of you have, some takes on the coverage of the conflict on both sides.
Can we start with Destiny?
No, let's start with Jackson Hinkle. No one should listen to Jackson Hinkle. Then you can say whatever else you were going to say. Yeah.
Wait, hold on. What's your problem with Jackson Hinkle?
Jackson
MAGA
Hinkle was
communism,
idiot.
that we're done. That's
This is
it.
stupid.
That's retarded.
Ah,
There we go. There's my whole problem.
Bro, fuck the American. Oh my god, communism, terrible. Like, no, wait, quibbles. What's your problem
Yeah.
with Jackson Hinkle?
That Jackson Hinkle like regularly, just constantly, in terms of the attack on the hospital, in terms of lots of stuff, he's just like constantly saying complete. That was supposed to be a throwaway, but yeah, he's saying complete bullshit all the time, and it's just
He
like,
is.
Okay,
bad.
okay, wait, hold on.
Hinkle is a
Okay.
habitual grifter.
All right, one second.
Yeah.
How would someone like Jackson Hinkle be different to someone like Ben Shapiro and his takes and his coverage of the conflict?
Because I think that Ben Shapiro at least attempts broadly to be truthful, even if he is biased. That's
Oh,
different
bro,
than Jackson
come on.
Hinkle, who is both biased and doesn't even
Is
attempt
it-
to be truthful.
Wait,
Can I draw a difference?
Wait,
Can I draw
wait.
a different? Wait, real quick. Just in terms of expanding what you're saying, I think the difference is Ben Shapiro, like, let's say there's a fight where 5 people bring guns on one side and 5 people bring guns on the other side. Ben Shapiro would report this as, wow, 5 really bad dudes like showed up with guns and they managed to get killed by like good guys or whatever. He would never report that the other 5 guys had guns. He would only report one side of it. Jackson Hinkle would claim that 4,000 brave men were surrounded by like 5 murderers. He would completely fabricate the story. That's the difference. Ben Shapiro doesn't seem to outright lie, but he selectively chooses facts so much that the stories he tells are essentially dishonest. But it's not usually with an outright lie.
So one
I
is
mean,
a little dishonest, the other is an outright liar. What Quibbles just said is, with Ben Shapiro,
but
he
weighing
tries or
things
attempts
out.
to be honest. Wait, hold on.
Yeah,
Does anybody
weighing
else on this
things-
panel agree with that?
I never
That
said
Ben
Ben Shapiro.
Shapiro-
To be clear, I never said Ben Shapiro
So
tends to
look-
be honest. I said Ben Shapiro usually won't fabricate fact. Jackson Hinkle has no obligation to be truthful in anything that he. He'll show you a video from 2014 from Syria and claim that it's IDF soldiers killing Palestinians today. He would do something like that. Ben Shapiro will say something like Arab nations attack Israel for absolutely no good reason. He'll say something like that, right?
Ben Shapiro
So-
would also say there's 40 beheaded babies and provide absolutely no proof. But Loner, you wanted to talk about Quibbles and his take that Ben Shapiro is more honest and wouldn't lie as Jackson Hinkle would.
I did not
No,
support
Ben
in
Shapiro
that statement.
does. Ben
Just
Shapiro
clarify,
does
that's not what I
lie
did.
sometimes. Jackson Hinkle lies all the time. That's all the difference is.
No, but
Yeah, I mean, just one last note on
And, and Jackson lies with a lot more impunity. Yeah.
Hinkle is also
He does
like
a lot
just
more
openly
maliciously,
a
so.
grifter. Like he went from being like a Warren stan in 2018. He was an ML in 2020. He was a conservative communist in 2022. And then he went on fucking Fox News and was promoting George Soros controls the world. There's a deep state run by the FBI with George Soros conspiracy theories.
Hold
The
on.
guy is like either insane or a grifter. Like those are the two options.
I mean,
Yeah.
Like
there's a fine line between like
Okay,
far
Prime
right
wanted to insult Destiny. I wanna
fascists
hear about
and
that. We're done with
MLs. To
Jackson.
be fair, that's not a very
Prime wanted
fucking
to insult
far
Destiny.
grift. Like the far right
Prime insult
fascist
Dennis
is
Destiny.
like barely indistinguishable between the tanky. Let's be honest.
Wait, hold on,
Okay.
Slicker. What do you want? Wait, hold on, Quibbles. 1 second, Slicker. What do you want?
Nice to meet you guys. I just want to come in here and say that, I've not been watching too much. But, I gotta say something. I'm a threat. I am. I'm not trolling here. I'm not messing about. I feel like I'm a threat to society. And you know why? I don't know you guys. One second. Let me just put you guys up.
Because
Nice
your
to meet
bald
you.
head
You guys
blinds
don't know.
people as you walk by.
Bro, shut up. You're white. You're a cracker. Shut up. No one's talking to you.
Okay.
But I want to
You're
jump in
you're
straight
whiter
and
than I
jump
am,
in.
whoever you
I want
are.
to jump in and straight talk. I want to talk and say some things, right? Number one, Destiny. Destiny, this is you little cook. Look at me, baby. Now, let me ask you a question, right? Why does everyone here think they are eligible to say Hamas is a terrorist group? Let me hear that shit. Let me hear that from you guys.
Why are we allowed to say Hamas is a terrorist group?
Yeah.
Because
go
in their
ahead. Let me-
original charter, it seemed as though they were advocating for the destruction of Jewish people all across the world.
Okay, well, I actually did hear that. That's okay. I think that is wrong, but that's the only reason why they are But that's the only reason why they are labeled as a terrorist group because of what they said about the Jews. But
That's not
listen
the
to
only
me.
reason. They
No.
also
Listen to me.
engage-
Listen to me.
Okay,
Okay,
you
but
don't want
listen
me to
to
answer?
me.
Okay,
Listen-
go ahead. Yeah.
Okay,
There
okay,
are other
but listen
reasons
to this.
too, but yeah, go ahead.
Okay, all right, okay, but listen to this. We shouldn't be saying that because we don't know that what they're going for. We are not in their footsteps to say that they are a terrorist group. Now you know why. Listen to this as well. Destiny, you are a Palestinian. Your mom and your dad just died. Hamas comes up to you and says, "Oh, we're gonna go invade Israel." What are you gonna say after your mom and dad just died from Israel attack?
I don't know. I
They
guess
might
I'd
say something
well,
like,
I'll go be a
"The
terrorist
day
too."
of
I mean, what do you want
judgment
me to
will
say?
not come until Muslims fight the Jews. When the Jew will hide behind stones
Oh,
and
get
trees,
the
the
fuck
stones
outta
and
here with
trees will
that.
say,
Oh my
"Oh,
God.
Muslim, oh,
You know
servant
what?
of
You know what?
God,
Let me say
there's
something.
a
Let
Jew
me say something
behind me.
about this guy.
Come
Let me
and
say
kill
something about this
him."
guy.
Wait, hold on,
Easily,
Slicker.
Far more
easily.
productive.
No, hold on,
Easily.
Slicker. Wait, Slicker,
Okay.
Slicker, hold on. Fabian, you just
Sorry,
quoted
that's just the
something-
1988 charter of
No,
laws.
you just quoted it with no context, with no background. You just said
No
but this
context.
is the
What
charter, there's
context
nothing-
makes the trees and
Let me- no,
stones
hold on,
crying
hold on,
out for
wait,
the
hold on.
Muslims to kill the Jews?
Hold on.
Fucking
First of all,
makes sense.
First of all, we act as though Hamas was just created out of nowhere, out of the blue. First and foremost.
No, I fucking
You
don't.
wouldn't have yes, you fucking do. Because you fucking
No, I don't.
act as though
Bibi
Hamas just came out
Netanyahu
of nowhere
strengthened
just to
fucking
go out of-
Hamas because he wanted a group that was Islamist that would cause problems with the Palestinian Authority, and then his dumbass let it
Keep
get out of
going.
control. I'm a
Keep going.
fucking libertarian, okay? But when somebody comes on here and tries to act like fucking terrorists aren't pieces of shit, it's fucking stupid. And you brought him on to
No,
cause some
where's
drama.
your-
Someone make fun of him.
Where is your energy for America, for Europe, for even Israel? Where's your energy for
Bitch,
saying
you
that?
don't
But you know
know
what? The
me.
whole world. Listen, you white
don't
shit. Don't
fucking
talk to me
know
like
me.
that.
My
But for
energy-
all your,
oh,
all
now I'm
your
just a
energy,
white shit.
all
Now
your
I'm white shit.
energy,
You're-
all your
I'm
energy. I don't
darker
give a
than you,
shit. I don't give a
bitch.
shit. I don't give a shit. I don't give a shit. If you're gonna talk about
I know
Hamas,
you don't give a
first
shit. You're
everyone
too
in this
fucking
world,
stupid to be able to
everyone in this
fucking think
world
for a
should start
second.
talking about what America and what Europe has done to all everyone. But because of white people dying in this world and this woman that's died, they don't want to show like IDF don't want to show pictures of any of the kids that died in Palestine. They don't give a shit.
A
They
lot
use
of the
that.
people
They
who died
use
in
that as
southern
shit.
Israel were like Thai
No
migrant
shit.
workers. A lot of them
as
were
an
Arab.
Iraqi, as an
They weren't all
Iraqi,
white people.
as an Iraqi that's seen the dirty, scummy Americans invaded, and
No,
even
also-
Ukraine wanted to jump in and invade Iraq.
Like,
But
when did you
because
live
of-
in Iraq again?
We
When did you live
get
in
it.
Iraq again?
No,
Like,
no,
for
no.
how
We
long?
get
Yeah,
it.
you
We
guys
get
are
it.
racist.
We
Listen,
get
listen,
it.
listen.
You're a
But
racist.
because
You guys are
white people
You
are
hate
dying
white
and getting
people.
invaded, we should tear for them. Go suck my dick. I don't give a fuck about you. Fuck you. And if you think Hamas is a terrorist, first look at yourself in the
Okay.
mirror
The IDF
because you're
is
living in a
darker than you,
terrorist ass country,
motherfucker.
bitch.
After-
West side.
The
After we're
IDF
done
is
with
West
darker
side.
than you,
libertarian
white
versus
bitch.
whatever this is, can we get back to something
All right.
productive?
And
Both
this
me
first of all, and
and
this
the IDF
homeless,
are darker than you.
and this guy, this electrocuted looking ass motherfucker saying Jackson Hinkle is a fucking whatever you said, talking
he's
shit
a
about him.
Nazgul. He literally
Listen,
quotes
listen,
LaRouche. LaRouche is
listen,
a far
you know
right
what
fascist.
is, you know what,
He's
Jackson,
probably an FBI
Jackson,
operative. He went on Fox
Jackson,
News.
you know what?
He promoted white supremacy, promoted the deep state.
Listen,
believes
listen,
that
let me say
pretty much a Nazi.
something. You
Fuck
know
the
what?
guy.
You know what I'm gonna say? I respect him. You know why? Because he's against America, and I respect him for that.
Oh my
And not
God,
you
wow.
guys say that shit. Not you
81
guys
who's
say that
against-
shit. You
81
don't see that
who's-
shit.
Alright,
Any
alright,
motherfucker in this world
alright.
talk shit about
Slicker.
Jackson Hinkle. You ain't promoting or helping anyone in this world other than sitting
That's true.
here
That's a really
begging
good
for money
point.
like
Can you
Destiny,
point to
just
which
trying to
causes
fund this
Jackson
shit.
Hinkle has promoted? Can you point to one
Okay, well,
Palestinian
all right.
charity?
Listen.
Let's not fucking
No, just real
drag
quick.
this
Name
on.
one
At the end of the day, at the end of the day, the charity
No, just
is
name
the
one.
charity is.
Stop pivoting. Stop pivoting.
Listen,
Name one
no,
thing that he's actually promoted for the benefit of Palestinian people
Okay.
besides posting on Twitter. Name one concrete thing.
ask
that
him
he's
for
promoted.
$3
bro, the
donation.
charity is of him
I'm not
exposing
saying
the
the
world,
$3.
Oh
him
my God.
exposing
He's the
his own
charity.
government.
He's the
Bro,
charity.
he could die from this, retard. He
He's
could
not
get
gonna
killed
die
from
from
this.
anything.
Bro,
Come
okay,
on, the victim
not,
complex.
bro,
Come
says the
on.
guy that's a Discord mod. Don't talk. I'm not talking to you. But I'm saying it to this
Discord
fuck on
mod.
the right. I'm telling you that he could die from this. It could be a threat. I'm telling you, it's dangerous.
He's
None of
not
you
gonna
Americans would do
die.
that.
That's
All
true.
you
Every
guys
time
are
I
backing
post
up
on Twitter,
Biden's
It's a charity to the
all
world.
of you guys
So
are
true. So true.
All right.
Enough. Stop.
Okay, you guys just got wrecked.
Enough. All I'm gonna
What do
say
you
is
mean
that
enough? You brought him on.
Why
for
were
this
you
fight.
nodding along with much of what he was saying? I know you don't agree with him, so why were you nodding?
what I'm going to say is this: when somebody labels Hamas as terrorists but fail to recognize the IDF and what they've done in Gaza, what they've done to Palestinians, and refuses to acknowledge the war crimes that were committed by the Israelis, I can't really take you that serious. If you were to look at the IDF and
Who
think to
did that?
yourself,
Who did
"Hey,
that?
you know what?
Just as a quick thing.
Justify
Well,
all the
wait, hold on, wait.
casualties,
Just as a
all
quick
the
thing. Just as a quick
individual-
thing. Q.
Alright,
The
go
reason
ahead.
why people have an issue with this is here's what it looks like when you go to 95% of Western people and you say, hey, here is some irrefutable evidence that the IDF was shooting civilians at long range. They killed civilians for no reason. Do you know what 95% of people say? They go, that's really fucking horrible. Those soldiers should be punished. Here's what happens when you show videos of, like murdered, broken, German girl bodies being thrown around trucks, being spit on, okay, by Gaza City inhabitants. And you say, hey, do you think this is bad? This is what you guys do. Wait, you gotta understand. Well, there's an occupation, and sometimes the selling people might be. It's not always bad. There's a context behind everything. There's a context behind. That's the issue. That's why people have an issue. That's why people have an issue with the.
Every time that is
Okay, you can keep talking about it. That's the issue. That's the reality. That's the reality. Okay. That's the reality. That's the issue. That is the issue.
No, hold on.
Who did it?
Wait,
Who did it?
Who the fuck is talking over
You
me?
made a
Wait,
claim.
stop,
Who
Fabian.
did it?
No, Fabian, stop. You act as though the fucking people that support Israel don't say, do you condemn Hamas? The first fucking thing, when you point out all the fucked up shit that the IDF did,
Of
the
course
first thing
they
say is,
do.
you condemn Hamas. You
People
condemn
say
Hamas.
that because people
You
ask
act
that
like-
because
Because
it's a
the
layup.
lefties
That's why
won.
people
There
ask
have
it.
been Jewish terrorists in the West Bank. If you asked me to condemn them, I would immediately condemn them and we would move forward. It would take literally 15 seconds. If that.
It's literally,
Okay, but let
I
me
saw
speak to
all over
that.
Twitter, all of these lefties that were like, hey, white people, do you condemn this mass shooter? And we're like, fucking
Yeah, duh.
obviously. Like,
Yeah,
because
I-
it's only the
then we
lefty
move
that's
forward.
like, well, hold on,
let
there's
me-
all of
let
these
me
issues.
speak
You
to that.
just proved this fucking point.
Former
I
Prime Minister.
I'm muting everybody. Shut the fuck up. Shut the fuck up. Don't speak over me, you fucking cunts. When you act, right? When you fucking act as though all Palestinians support Hamas, all Palestinians are extremists.
Who
but
does
you
this?
turn a blind eye. Shut the
No
fuck
one
up when I'm
says
talking,
that.
nigga. Let me
You
finish
keep-
what I'm saying.
You keep
When you
making
look at the
claims
Israeli
and lies
government-
about
Hold
us.
on. No. Well, you just acted as though all Palestinians and all people that support
No, I
Palestinians
didn't.
were
You're
racist.
lying about
Nobody
me.
said that. Q. You're fighting.
Yes, you
You're
did.
boxing
Yes, you
shadows
did.
right now. You're fighting
That's what you
ghosts.
just did. That's what you just did because you're like, when it comes to us, we condemn all people that fucking do extremist acts. We condemn them, but you guys say, what about Israel?
Why are
These
you
people
lying
fucking
about me and
oppressed.
Destiny?
These people get to do this. You literally just said this. You can't gaslight me, you stupid fuck.
I-
Number one.
You're trying to
Q,
gaslight
Q,
me. I
this-
never
hold
said
on. This
that
is
all
the difference.
fucking
When
Palestinian people support Hamas.
Let me
when
know
America,
what I can reply, by
when,
the way.
yeah,
Go.
you will. Okay, listen. When America does stuff like Abu Ghraib, people are ashamed. They hide it. When it comes out, not only is the entire world looking at the United States, which is crazy, the support in the United States for foreign wars falls off a cliff. Okay, when Hamas abducts, burns, beheads, murders, and rapes people and brings back their villages, the Palestinians there cheer. It's a big difference.
Let me ask you
careful.
about this.
That's
Hold
not
on.
fair,
Let me ask.
Stephen. I don't like that.
Yeah.
Not only.
Okay,
wait,
I
hold
like
on.
it. It's totally fair. We saw the videos.
No,
okay.
it's not fair.
No,
it's not fair because
We saw the people outside cheer. We didn't see the people
fair.
inside who weren't
No, you
interested.
could also
It's
see the
not
video.
fair.
Wait.
It's not
Hold
fair.
on. You
It's
could
not
also see
fair,
the
and the
fucking
reason it's
video.
not fair-
Quibbles, stop. Quibbles,
The
I'm
reason
fucking
it's not-
talking.
okay, go
You
for
could
Yeah, go
stop.
for it.
You could also see the videos of the Israelis celebrating the deaths of innocent civilians in Gaza. You could see those videos too, but you don't talk about that. You
I'm
don't
sorry,
talk
wait,
about
which
the fact
ones?
that
Wait,
the
which
Israeli
videos?
government is leaning extremely far right,
Come on,
and a lot of
which
these
videos?
fucking
Come on,
people are pro fucking
You just
exterminating
make shit up.
Palestinians.
Okay. Yeah,
How
there
am I
you
making
go.
shit up? Wait, how am I making
Okay,
shit up?
it's
Did you
not
see
Where?
the
fair.
Leah,
Did you
where
see
in
the did you see the head of
Oh,
security in Israel
okay,
putting armed settlers in the West Bank, or did I make that up? What was his
I'm
name?
asking
Ben
you,
Giver.
where
Did
are
I
the
just make
video-
that up?
Oh, okay.
Did I make that
Karantos,
up?
can I just Karantos? Q, 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 Q,
Let me ask
Q,
Destiny.
Q,
Why
Q,
are you
Q.
dodging it, pussy? I got him.
Q.
He's
I wanna
dodging
okay.
it. He's dodging it. He's
Q, I was
dodging
gonna
it.
try.
Wait.
I was gonna try really.
I'm not.
Q.
Hold on, loner. I'm not letting it go. I'm being autistic about this. Fuck this. Destiny, did you not see the video of the head of fucking defense, Israeli defense, Ben Giver, arming settlers in the West Bank to forcibly take fucking land from Palestinians? Did you not see that? Yes or no?
To take land?
I
What are you
haven't
talking
seen
about?
it, but the
Defend
videos
themselves.
that you're talking about, they're not the same thing as what I was just talking about.
What were you talking about?
I was talking about murdered civilians being trucked back to towns where everybody is cheering and celebrating and then spitting on the body of murdered civilians. If people in Israel are doing that, maybe if they are, man, that would be really fucked up. And you know what? If I saw it, I'd say, that is insanely fucked up. I would super condemn that video. Do videos like that exist?
Are we claiming that the situation of the people in Gaza is equivalent to the situation of the people in Israel? Yes or no? I just want to
You're
know.
the only one
No,
making
we're not.
false
No, there you go.
equivalencies.
It's an
It's
absolute
literally
point.
only
It's
you
a valid
making false
point. It's a valid
equivalencies.
point.
So,
No,
okay.
he's the one who
The
made
point
false
I don't
equivalences
like
because
about
he
that,
acts as though
Stephen.
But
Israelis
wait, no, Q.
are
Then we
equally
agree,
oppressed
Q.
as-
Then we agree, Q. Then we agree. The Palestinian people celebrate the murder of civilians. They love it, but they've got a good reason to. That's fine. That's your argument. I can hear that.
Israelis celebrate the murder
not-
of innocent Palestinians too, but you ignore that fact. You ignore the fact that they select extreme far right people into their government, people that are pro exterminating Palestinians, but you ignore that as well.
If
Loner,
Israel's
go
so
ahead.
pro exterminating, Palestinians, why don't they just kill a whole bunch fucking more? Why are the death tolls so fucking shitty on the Israeli side?
Wait, hold on. Weren't you the same person that was questioning the death tolls anyways? You're like, wait, 3,000, 4,000? Oh, no way that is true. Weren't you doing
I
that?
never said I was questioning death tolls. I said I was questioning when all of them are called civilians. But I'm asking you, let's say Israel just wants to murder Palestinians.
Wait,
Why
no,
don't they-
okay. Wait, let me ask
Oh,
you.
you don't have an
Let
answer
me
for
ask you
that?
this.
Oh, gotcha.
No,
That's
no.
what I
Wait,
thought. You're not gonna
wait.
answer
Do you have an answer to my question? Then, so
Oh
when
my
we see
God.
4,000 deaths, are you saying they're all Hamas? You're saying they're majority Hamas?
I'm not
I
saying
thought
they're
that-
all Hamas. I never said they're all Hamas, but I said definitely they're not all civilians. Okay.
Okay, no, okay, then give me a split in your opinion, right? In your educated opinion, since you know so much about this conflict, right? How much would you say is civilians versus terrorists?
I can't possibly
It's
know
an
the answer to that.
ongoing
So
conflict.
just
Yeah,
to give a
I'm giving-
context number, just to give a context number on
number.
the named and identified bodies by the Ministry of Health in Gaza, only 1 in 5,
Hamas.
20%
Wait, hold up.
are military.
You just named Hamas.
Hey,
Your
let me
source is
finish.
Hamas.
Military aged men. Okay, men
Your
18 to
source is
35.
Hamas.
Only 1 in 5. The overwhelming
Okay,
majority
Talk and left.
are not even
That
possible
same-
soldiers.
Wait, hold up. That
Oh my
exact
God.
same source that you just cited lied
Yes.
about the hospital bombing, right?
Ooh.
I don't know. I don't.
The
There's like a
exact
time. There's a timeline reconstruction there that relates to the translation of the doctor. I don't
Maybe my
fucking know.
source of Hamas isn't
What I would
great.
point
They lied.
to,
That was
if
the
you're interested-
largest conversation that happened. This entire time, in terms of the response of Israel, the largest thing that they pointed to was that specific bombing, and they were lying about it.
Well, that is
And now you're
true.
using
I
it
would
as
be
a source.
careful. I would wait. While that is true, I'm pretty sure Zelensky himself co-signed that there were Russian missiles that had launched that had landed inside what was it Russian Ukrainian territory, and then we found out later on that they were actually Ukrainian missiles that fell short of a Russian target and bombed their own stuff in Ukrainian territory. And I'm pretty sure Zelensky himself co-signed that message and went public. So I'm not trying to say that we should believe Hamas because I generally don't, but I'm saying they are the only ones that can reliably report deaths in Gaza. Just because they do tell some lies doesn't mean every single
But that's
thing they
not
say will be a
true.
lie.
And
Just saying
the
it's-
additional data
That's
I
not
would just
true.
give is that
The
in
answer-
previous
Stephen, that's not
conflicts, the
true.
numbers they've
The-
given
the-
aligned almost entirely with
That's
the
not
UN's
true.
numbers. That's
Amnesty
all.
International, that's
Oh my
not
God.
true. Amnesty International and also the IDF will ultimately come out with numbers that are generally considered to be serious and real. That is not something they've done
Dog,
yet. And the reason
You
they've
can't
done
say
it yet is
Hamas's
because it is
numbers
not
are
something that has
bullshit
been-
and then be like, but IDF's is going to be pretty good.
The IDF ones
They'll be more accurate, but it's not like they're going to be. They don't have an incentive to bullshit too.
Consistently, the IDF numbers consistently, one, they wait longer, and two, they line up broadly with UN numbers. So yeah, I think that they're significantly.
So the
So does
original
Ministry of
question.
Health.
The original,
That's
the
the defense
original
for-
question.
If that's the defense
original-
for the IDF numbers, then the Hamas numbers are good. So moving back to the Hamas numbers, only 1 in 5
I
are
said, if you
military-aged
wanna
men.
talk about the
Okay,
IDF
of the
numbers,
identified
you're
dead,
like-
1 in 5 are military-aged men. That's like
If
the
you wanna
maximum
throw
number
out-
of militants, and
If
that's
you want to
like
throw
it's
out the
clearly not that
IDF
high.
numbers and only use
my God.
Amnesty International, that's fine. We can only use Amnesty International. They haven't come out with numbers yet because they don't know yet because it's an ongoing conversation.
Listen, I know your name is Quibbles. I know your name is Quibbles, and you're very on brand right now. Right, but so there's a couple of issues here. Number one, we're way off topic, but fuck it. Number two, when you talk about death tolls, when you talk about numbers, when you talk about these things, devoid of any context, it is a very kind of sneaky way of talking about this situation. Because I agree that there are absolutely better ways for Israel to fight in terms of conducting warfare against Hamas. But you are talking about a group of people who, so for this recent refugee bombing, right? As far as we know, right? Israel could be lying. The former deputy prime minister, when he came out to speak about the recent refugee camp bombing, could be totally lying. But according to Israel, they made telephone calls for 2 weeks straight. And then they knocked on the roof a half hour before the bombing, right? And they were telling people over and over and over again, you have to leave this area. There is a facility at the bottom of this building that is Hamas, and we are targeting a specific commander. Leave the building. They give them 2 weeks, and then they knock on the roof a half hour later, right? And then they blow up the building. And what happens when they blow up the building? According to Hamas, right? According to Hamas, over 50 people, last I checked right before the stream, so I mean the death toll could have increased. Over 50 people are dead so that Israel could kill a couple of Hamas people and a specific commander. And so when you talk about like, well, look at the death numbers, and you don't talk about the fact that Hamas says it's psychological warfare. Israel's lying. You have to stay here. You have to be our human shield. They won't bomb this building so long as you're here. They're just making up things to scare you. They're not even going to blow up the building anyways. And Israel does everything they can to evacuate these people. And then 50, 60 people die. Yeah, the numbers are going to be different when this is a pattern that occurs in this area. There are plenty of things we can talk about doing warfare better. But again, SEL, I've already tripped you up on this multiple times, which is your only solution is to do nothing and to just let Hamas have power.
So just sticking on the death numbers, right? Like the even the rate of civilian casualties by like Hamas's incursion so far from the ID'd bodies was 1/3 military. Israel's bombing is so fucking bad at targeting militants that's at best 1/5. So Israel is performing worse on a kill-for-kill
basis. Did you listen to anything I said?
That's
fucking retard.
Wait, hold on. I want to hear this. I want to hear the answers because I've never, ever heard somebody actually respond to this before. So I'm actually genuinely super curious, okay? Everyone in here agrees that Hamas intentionally operates outside of civilian infrastructure, right? Is Israel just never supposed to counterattack Hamas if they constantly and consistently operate out of civilian infrastructure? Or what is the solution there?
SEL's given it before. He's already given it before. He just says do nothing.
Why is every pro-Israeli person talking?
Why are you talking?
Let SEL talk. Yeah, let SEL talk. I want to hear the answers. I'm super curious about the answer to that.
I want to give it to Loner because he's given a better one before, but I can.
Okay, Loner can answer too. I don't care either one. Yeah, I want to hear the response to that. I'm curious what the response is.
Yeah, what was my answer to that before?
I could have sworn we had this debate like a week ago. Whatever.
No, wait. I'll own the position. Like, yeah, if and this is the case in international law as well. If civilian infrastructure is being used for military purposes, it ceases to be civilian infrastructure in the eyes of international law. So, like, if there's like rocket, like to the point that Hamas will like literally commandeer people's houses to use their rooftops as military bases, like temporarily. So,
okay. Wait, hold on.
Yeah, Loner, I don't have an answer for what Israel should do.
Wait, Loner, let me ask you a couple of questions.
Well, I have an answer.
Yeah, wait. Quibbles, 1 second. Quibbles, 1 second. Just for you, Loner. Apologies, Quibbles. I'm really curious because we had a conversation about this, right? So when you say it ceases to be civilian infrastructure, right? I have a couple of questions for you because you said last time we spoke about this, these people, as in Palestinian civilians, are willingly offering themselves as human shields. They see it as martyrdom.
Some of them are. Some of them are, but not all of them. That's not like the rule. But we've seen examples of that, yeah.
All right. So are you saying that they're being held there by force then?
It's a dictatorship.
Yeah, well, if they're being commandeered, yeah, the house is being commandeered. That means they're being held there, yeah.
So okay, so
in 20 years.
hold on. Let's build up on this, right? So they're being held there by force, by Hamas, to be used as human shields against Israel. And then Israel looks at that and says, all right, you're being held there by force. You're pretty much a hostage. We'll still bomb you regardless.
That's why they knock.
On what? Oh my God! Thank you for knocking. Thank you for knocking before you told me to fuck up even after I get the
What's the alternative?
I'm being held Wait,
Wait, Q. So
Yeah,
wait,
I'll tell you
people think
that.
What's your solution, Q?
Wait, hold on, wait,
I'll-
real quick. Okay, hold on. Okay, there's a big waste of time. All of us agree that using civilian shields is bad. We all agree with that. And all of us agree that killing civilians sucks. Okay, but then the question is, and I'll pose it to you, Q or STL or Lonerbox, what is the alternative?
The alternative is getting to your targets in a way that doesn't disproportionately kill or harm innocent civilians. That's
How
the
is
You're
that?
not doing that.
Okay, I just want to build on that. I want to build on that.
Do you think the Jewish actually had Jewish space lasers?
Hold on.
How the
No,
fuck
it's
did
not
they do
space lasers.
that?
I just want to.
Oh
I just
my
want to build. I just want to build on that. Okay. So Q, then are you co-signing an IDF ground invasion to Gaza?
I
And do
wouldn't
you
say
think that
ground
would result? And do you think that would result in less civilian deaths than what's happening now?
I 100% believe that first of all, civilian deaths would be inevitable if you do it even in that way. But it
I'll be
would
right
be
back. Somebody come me answer this
extremely less.
question, okay?
It'll be wait. I'm answering you, fucking retard. Okay, don't. He's trying to pull a fucking XQC on me. It's not gonna fucking work, right? Anyway,
Live.
the answer is simple.
That's a really nice
the
chair.
answer is
Sorry,
simple.
go on.
Either ways, right? Either ways,
It's
people are
not.
going to die. Either
The
ways,
back
people are
coverage
gonna
is so
fucking
bad.
die. Shut the fuck up, bro. Fucking mute you, permanently, you fucking idiot. All right, he's back. Right. Let's wait for the retard to put on the headset.
Okay,
All right,
Steven, I like
answer?
your chair.
All right,
STL
debuffed Hassan. Let me fucking answer you, right? What I was saying is, regardless, you wouldn't escape civilian casualties or civilian deaths, but one would be extremely less compared to the other. So I
You
wouldn't say
think a
ground
invasion
invasion.
would be
I
less
wouldn't say
civilian
ground.
deaths?
I wouldn't say a fucking ground invasion where you send hundreds of thousands of fucking soldiers.
Then what's the
I say
alternative?
send specialized. I say send specialized.
Like a raid?
troops and get after your fucking targets.
You send
Right, that's
you
what I'm
send
saying.
20 good men from Game of Thrones
Wait,
into
a
Gaza City and
raid?
try to fight that way?
Lonerbox,
Instead
you
of
can't do a
fucking
raid.
dropping bombs and killing
300
fucking
miles
50
of
to
tunnels.
1, I'd rather fucking do that.
Bro,
Q,
the point is
Q,
that
Q,
they're all
okay, hold
dead.
on,
You're
hold on.
sending them on
Is
a
it-
suicide
is
mission.
raiding-
Lonerbox said
is
something
raiding
cringe.
real
I
quick.
need to
fucking value
insult
Palestinian
Lonerbox for this
lives.
cringe.
Q,
Lonerbox
real
said
quick,
some
real
cringe.
quick.
You said
What
that
did
they
I
should
say?
just do like
Real-
yeah, you said that they should just do individual like individual like attacks on individual locations, right?
Okay, I don't know if you're like autistic, but I said it like it was a question. I asked a raid because it sounded like that's
Oh,
what
I'm sorry,
Karan
I'm
was
sorry.
saying.
Let me
No, I'm
let me
sorry.
let
I
me
apologize.
let me clarify a few
My
things,
bad.
right? So
That's all right.
so the problem
I
is
love
is that and Q, and I'm not even trying to be insulting to you. I promise, right? Like a lot
Don't
of people
worry, don't worry.
have like watched.
It is what it is.
They haven't been in the military, or they don't have a lot of military knowledge, right? Or know a lot of people in it. So you're a lot of times people's views of the military is made by Hollywood, and or like successful raids by the Navy SEALs. So the first thing we need to understand is that like America's Navy SEALs, Green Berets, Marine Force Recon, like these people are some of the are a very small efficient groups, and they're some of the best in the entire world. And even though IDF has its own SF, they don't fucking compare. Now, Israeli intelligence is okay, right? Israeli intelligence is pretty good compared to U.S. intelligence, or at least what we know. But here's the problem with that concept: is there's really only two ways to do a non-ground invasion where you raid specific areas. So option A is something like Mogadishu in 1993, and we saw how successful that was, which is not fucking at all, right?
Yeah, we killed you,
You know, trying to do several raids in an area, and trying to go door to door, going through like the fatal funnel of fire. IDF is basically going to lose everybody and have a lot of unsuccessful missions, and they're not actually going to be able to get their targets, right? So they're just going to throw IDF soldiers to the wolves and get killed. And they have to go in a very large force in order to do that, because you're talking about a very densely populated area, right? You can't just, it's not like it's a small
It's not like
village
Osama bin
somewhere.
Laden in Pakistan or something where you're like
Right.
taking people by helicopter in the middle of fucking nowhere. And yeah.
Right, you can't do that like the Navy SEALs did. So there's
All right,
option
all
two,
right,
which
all
is
right, wait.
that option two,
Fabian,
which is that.
Give me a solution. Then give me a different way
Yeah,
than what
Toronto,
they're
I have a
already.
The
glorious
solution is targeted strikes on buildings that you believe Hamas is operating out of. And if
No, I
civilians
would-
aren't
that
allowed
was
to
the second
leave, then that's on Hamas.
It's-
That's
I would-
exactly what Israel's doing. I don't know there's a better way right now.
I've stated that what the type of warfare that Israel commits, I think, is likely the most ethical form of warfare that we see in the world. And yet there is something that I think Israel absolutely should be taken to task for, and the United States should be using whatever power, soft power it has, especially in the UN, to try and force this, which is that forcing people to southern Gaza, right? Where they have limited resources, limited water, and then Hamas moving installations into southern Gaza. They're ping-ponging refugees into areas to be bombed within Gaza, and it is completely unethical. They need to be setting up blue zones. They need to be setting up blue zones. No, listen. No. I'm going to finish this. They need to be set up. Nope. I'm going to finish this. They need to be setting up blue zones within Gaza or refugee camps outside of Gaza if they're going to go on an intensive bombing campaign followed by a ground invasion, so that refugees, at the very least, it may not be the best place, it may not be the greatest way, at the very least they have a means of not getting fucking bombed after they get cleared. Because it has been true before the October 7th attack. Roughly 85% of people that were in this quote unquote open air prison were able to get passes to leave Gaza to go to work or to medical facilities within Israel. So those people should be in refugee camps.
Super ultra quick question about this. If Hamas won't let people leave buildings that are getting bombed, why do you think they would let people leave to go to refugee camps?
So it's not a matter of whether or not Hamas will let people leave. I understand what you're saying, and that there will be people that will ideologically stay there, and there will be people that are forced to stay there. But you cannot take the moral high ground when you are ping-ponging people within this small, isolated area that with limited resources. Then when you say, look, we have a place for them to go to, it's not our fault that Hamas is literally holding them.
Hold on, Loner. Let Quibble's talk. Go ahead.
Today's the 31st. Okay, today's the 31st. The shooting happened, the attack happened on the 7th, right? Mm-hmm. And so it has been a very long time. Everyone expected for Israel to invade by now, but they haven't invaded by now. And the reason for that is because they've given
because the US said, please don't fucking invade.
Okay, the reason is that they've given a long time for people to move south so that they can have an invasion specifically of the north. Why do they have to attack the north specifically? Because that's where the tunnels are. There are 300 plus miles of tunnels in Gaza.
It's not addressing what I said at all, though.
They're not going to be able to have an attack against Hamas. They're not going to be able to ever probably destroy all of Hamas.
You're not
talking about the Taliban.
You're not answering what I said, though.
Like,
you're not answering the critique that they should be setting up some form of blue zone or refugee camp. The other thing that you're completely ignoring, is that part of the reason they haven't invaded yet is because there's 100,000 soldiers at their northern border, and Hezbollah and Lebanon are fucking eyeing them real close.
Okay, you can't just make a refugee camp in somewhere like Egypt, which won't take them, right? And the reason that Egypt won't take them is because
there's a fucking whole Sinai Peninsula nearby.
I understand. I'm sorry,
not Sinai Peninsula. The desert that starts with a Z.
Sorry, no, it's Egypt.
Fucking.
It's Egypt.
I know. I know. And then I said sorry. Immediately corrected myself. I'm saying immediately to the east of them is desert that you could set up areas.
Okay. If you put them in Egypt, there's going to be an expectation.
I'm not saying put them in fucking Egypt.
I'm trying to explain. You were annoyed at me for not directly answering
Egypt
your question.
Egypt doesn't want them.
Answer your question. Okay. Exactly. They can't put them in Egypt because if they left them in Egypt, there would be an expectation that they'd be allowed to stay in Egypt after this was all over. You can't put them into Israel proper because there would be an expectation to be permitted to stay in Israel proper after this is all over. And so therefore they have to stay inside of Israel proper, or excuse me, inside of Gaza proper. And so that means that they're either going to be in the northern of Gaza, which is where the majority of them live currently, or they're going to be forced south, which is a horrible
that is
situation,
such bullshit.
Obviously.
But that's you just made that up.
Nearly a month.
That's insane. There are plenty of places nearby that you can house refugees. Would it be incredibly expensive? Where? Would it be one of the most insane fucking tasks that you could ever take on? Absolutely. Right? But Israel is asking for billions of dollars. People are going to give them hundreds of billions of dollars in order to deal with this situation. And it would be, and I guarantee you, the U.S. and a lot of other places, even though I'm against them being involved in any capacity, would be willing to give a lot more money if Israel was moving people into safe zones and was removing the blockade.
Right. That's why they're trying to allow people to go south, because that's the closest to a safety that they can provide. They can't allow people to be in Israel
but they're not safe in the south.
Stay in Israel.
They're also bombing the south.
Okay.
Hold on. Wait. Hold on. Wait. I hear this. Wait. Hold on. Wait. Also, wait, this keeps getting said. They're bombing the South. They're not mass bombing the South. That's just not true. I don't know where this. I don't know. There were one or two operations that people are pretending like all of the South. I know we saw the Vox video where the picture was the bomb, but the South is not being mass bombed. The reason why the people in Gaza aren't safe is because Hamas doesn't want them to be safe. Okay, full stop. That's
again,
it.
Just always fucking put it to Hamas. Let Israel genocide the entirety of the fucking Palestinians in Gaza and be like,
both
Hamas,
statements are true.
We literally have evidence of them
Israel,
knocking and trying to
Israel
get
was
in,
trying
and
to
then
genocide. Israel
leave.
was trying to genocide all of those people. They'd be killing way more than 150 a day. I promise.
Sorry, hold on. Okay, so this is not genocide.
They're still not fucking beholden to the United States and what they fucking tell them to do. Biden told them back off, chill with the ground invasion, and they didn't do shit.
The entire occupation. Sorry, excuse me. The entire occupation is not genocide, and that like we got to get the number down to 0 right now. This is an ethnic cleansing campaign. It's and the results.
They're doing a terrible job.
People.
Well, they've only displaced 1.4 million people.
Yeah, like
when the Rohingya genocide happened, it was only 1.7 million. So maybe 300,000 more, and then we can call it the G word.
There are millions of Palestinians.
What? Wait, hold up. STL, you just lied.
Hold on.
Not true.
Hold on. Isn't Prime fucking talking quibbles? Wait, stop, quibbles.
There being 1.4 million.
Did I not say stop? Was I speaking Chinese? Ni hao ma. Was I speaking Chinese? Mandarin? The fuck? Prime, go ahead.
I had a hard time hearing you with the face diaper on. Sorry.
It's called a mask. Something you fucking retards don't know about. But my bad. Go ahead.
Thank you. So there are millions of Palestinians living outside within the Palestinian diaspora, right? In neighboring countries. This is an ethnic cleansing campaign. The point is to at least like for like the West Bank to make it so miserable that you leave. And to say that, well, Israel just hasn't wiped them all out by now, so I guess it's not genocide. And so what does that mean morally? It's still an ethnic cleansing campaign. Let's not make any mistakes about that. And they are bombing the South. Like we're getting reports of like bombs hitting the South. Like families.
Yeah, it's very limited.
Doing what Israel
told
during what Israel told them to do, leaving the north and still being hit down in the quote unquote safe areas. Now, as far as I know, what Destiny said is correct in that like they're not mass bombing the South, right? It's not the same, but people are dying there when they were told this is the safe area.
Well, I just want to say that's probably why there's a problem with blue zones is that historically, even since the 50s when they were going after like Fedayeen fighters, it was in refugee camps because that's where they operate from. So that's why the blue zone is not necessarily, you can't really have a blue zone because they're, that's one problem.
Look,
anyway.
there's no perfect solution there. Like I absolutely agree that the Palestinian Fedayeen, was operating out of refugee camps as well as in Jordan and almost, almost fucking overthrew a monarchy there and then had to get kicked to another country where they started another war and displaced 1 million Christians, but nevertheless, like I do agree that there's no perfect solution here. But the thing is that I don't think you get to take the moral high ground as Israel when you have people isolated into this area. Like I agree that like I think there's also this ridiculous kind of counter argument, which is like, oh, we'll just open everything up and it's like cool, and then we'll get the 4th intifada, or maybe this will be the 3rd one or whatever, and like every goddamn discotheque in fucking Tel Aviv will get blown up. Like there is a kind of a balancing issue
to
here.
Have the moral high ground over the terrorists.
To have the moral high ground over the terrorists is very different than having the moral high ground over
the moral high ground.
Right, like
over
I don't
who?
think. Well,
exactly.
Who they have to? You're asking anarchists; they would have to dissolve the state of Israel.
I'm asking. Okay. We can LARP, but I'm curious what your actual opinion is. Like, what do you think that they have to do?
Well, that's what I told you. I said that they need. Even if the blue zones are unsuccessful, right? Because the amount of money that they cause and the difficulty of running them means that only a limited number of people are able to achieve them, right? At least trying to have areas that are guaranteed safe and then asking the rest of the world for help specifically with those blue zones, right? Gives them the ability to go, we're doing the best we can.
Okay. When from those blue zones, Hamas starts shooting rockets at innocent
like
civilians
they're doing from Gaza?
That's what I'm saying. In those blue zones, right? Now they're blue zones. Now you're no longer allowed to, Israel's no longer allowed to attack those locations. When all of the people who are at the highest level of Hamas start shooting rockets from those locations,
What exactly should Israel do in response?
Okay, so what you've done now is like we're moving, like we're moving to like the new what if is once the blue zones fail, because I
You're
believe they never
saying this
will,
is how you get
right?
to the moral high ground.
Right,
I'm trying to
right.
understand the
The
moral high
different-
ground here.
Right. So the difference between the two examples of no blue zones versus failed blue zones is that failed blue zones is an attempt to give the Palestinian people a place to go that isn't forcing them into a country that doesn't want them, forcing them into a region that they may have to bomb later, right? Et cetera, et cetera. It is an attempt to the best of their ability to give them safe harbor. Even if that safe harbor fails.
This is real quick. Real quick. One of the reasons why people, Israel included, and other countries, believe it or not sometimes, try their best to follow international laws because when conflict happens, they want to be able to appeal to people like the United Nations or the international community, broadly speaking, for support. So we can say that Israel attempting to set up blue zones might be a show of good faith for them in order to garner more support from the international community. However, if it is the case that Israel believes that Hamas intentionally operates with civilian infrastructure, right now, Israel can bomb Gaza and say, well, look, Hamas is there. If Israel sets up a blue zone and then Hamas begins operating out of it, and now Israeli soldiers are going into blue zones to kill people, they might destroy all goodwill they have in the international community because now they're seen as attacking refugee camps that they themselves have said are safe. That could be an issue that Israel would have with setting up specific blue zones outside of Gaza City for civilians that are intermingled with the terrorist groups so much that you can't tell the difference between the two.
Right. So the question then becomes of like, this is a question of tactics in the future of like under the assumption or like the what if of what if blue zones fail. I agree that there are ways that this could get worse for the nation state of Israel. I don't give a fuck. What I'm saying is that when you're bombing people and you don't give them anywhere that is like absolutely safe to be, right?
Okay, so you're asking for
I understand that Israel is doing more than most countries would do in terms of warfare to be ethical, but there are still lines that not only can they do better, they absolutely should be doing better.
I think
not
maybe
just
this is-
more. They're not just
You're not
more,
actually asking
right?
for something
It's
to
a
change.
completely unreasonable standard in comparison with the way other countries have been treated when they have had a direct attack on their citizens like this. It's absolutely wild, the different standard that Israel is held to. And I don't know if it's anti-Semitism. I don't know if it's because there's like this weird symbolic idea of what Israel represents in the Middle East. I don't know what the reason for it is, right? But it's very strange.
There's
a massive difference
I made this
between
point like an hour ago, but
unprompted, like terrorist attacks on one country and then other countries where they actually have like a very long history and they're like extending borders.
What do you mean
and-
unprompted? Wait, do you not think that the United States made a bunch of decisions that directly led or indirectly led, you could argue, to 9/11?
Maybe I wouldn't say it's the same. I wouldn't say that those are the same at all. We're talking
they're
about
both
some are
blowback.
actually like violent attacks. These are actually like
Yeah,
back and
I
forth
actually-
violent attacks.
I
with
agree. It wouldn't be the
at
same,
one
right? Because the
another.
brutality of October 7th just does not compare to the brutality of
Yeah,
September
but
11th.
That's a
Right?
I think in
weird
both
subjective
cases,
And
it
it's
was pretty
destroying
clear that the
more of the
response, that
population.
the military response didn't make the world safer. We live
Right.
in the post 9/11 military response world. Are we all safer for it? Is Israel safer for it? Are Americans safer for it?
Okay.
Honestly,
this is a
that's
stupid
an
standard.
argument that I'm
You
much
just-
more
you just-
interested in than
no, you just
this
made a-
weird moral
that was-
grandstanding.
You just made a
So,
right,
Eris,
you just
no,
made a
Eris.
blanket
Okay,
statement
one
about
at a
war in
time.
general.
Okay.
I'll be
This is
quick.
not
You just
multiple
I'll be quick.
forever
You made a blanket
Sorry,
statement.
which- multiple
Yeah,
forever
which one of us
wars.
can go?
I'll be very quick.
Okay, wait,
Go.
hold on. Wait. Fabian, go, and then Quibbles go after.
Okay, I'll be very quick.
Can I go?
To say that the military response made us less safe, right, is a condemnation of the specific actions that occurred in the Iraq and Afghanistan war, of which you will find very little argument from me. But when you say it this way, we all know what you're actually saying, which is that any military response makes us less safe, as you have said in the past on other panels with me, and your only response is to have no military action against Hamas, which is absurd, right? So I agree with you that the Iraq invasion was
No,
stupid.
that's wrong.
Based
So
on
every
lies,
time you've
et
asked
cetera.
this question, I say like stuff to the degree of maybe what
You're a
Lordox
liar.
is talking about, target attacks on individual locations. I've said that type of military response might solve, like in the very short run, some level
That's
of
not
violence,
what Lordox
but it
said.
won't
No,
solve
it's
the
not what you
long
said. That's a
run
lie.
violence.
No,
You
wait,
said
wait,
you
no,
said you did not
Loner,
believe it
stop,
would work at
stop.
all.
Let me tell you what I was actually saying.
Wait, stop,
Oh my
That's not
stop,
what
stop.
Lordox said at all.
Stop.
You are not
Quibbles,
listening.
Quibbles.
Lordox was saying
Go
that you
ahead
should target
and let
So I
smaller
think what I've
locations, right,
said in
that
the
divert
past.
military function, right?
So I think what I've said in the past is that when it comes to criticizing the Israeli military, it tends to be over like kind of details. So when I've read like some case law on about when their investigations into the 2008 war, it seemed to be the case that the critiques of Israel was that occasionally there were acts of recklessness, like when they hit targets that had no clear or no discernible military use, like the sewage treatment plant, or there was this thing like roof knocking. People always talk about roof knocking is, as far as I've seen from investigations, is basically useless. It's indistinguishable if you're in a building from like explosions going off all around you. So there's not really much point in it. Or they've been criticized for their warnings and their phone call messages not being very coherent. But it's things like that. It's like just like tangible
bullshit.
things compared to
Comparing
it to like
To
what?
say that roof knocking, isn't
Oh my God! Shut up! Shut up, David!
I'm just quoting the investigation from the international court. Like, I'm
trying to get back to the question.
It's
which is,
bullshit.
Like, what types of response are acceptable, right?
Okay.
And so, Lonerbox, you were trying to say that these types of targeted responses on like individual buildings, that's maybe I don't know if you described that as the right approach, but I thought you were leaning that direction earlier. That seems like fine.
No, but if they do what you just said, though, the problem is that Hamas embeds their military activity and their military infrastructure in civilian infrastructure. So, they could be. We don't know. They could be every target they've hit could have had Hamas infrastructure or personnel. That's feasible, right?
Feasibly, if like every one
still a lot of
Hamas
civilians would
fighter,
die.
there were still like 4 like civilians like immediately in the radius. Maybe
It's not just about fighters; it's about infrastructure. It's about rockets. It's about launch pads. It's about stockpiles. It's about communication.
It's from the
centers.
Gaza. It's from
not
the
just
release
about.
data.
It's not just about proportion. It's not just about proportions of
Something that
people.
is
It's
directly
also.
from Hamas.
It's not just about proportions of people. Even this strike today in the refugee camp, wasn't it? Because they said there was like a big part of the tunnel network underneath it. So
There's
it's
this
targeting
very,
tunnels.
very
It's about targeting
simplistic-
communication.
There's this very
I just want to be
simplistic
clear.
idea when it
The
comes
argument
to
that I
how
was
we're
giving to
doing.
Fabian every single time
No,
is that
there's
none of these worked in the long run, right? Israel has bombed Gaza half
why
a
are you
dozen
grouping
times.
all of these military operations together as if they're the same thing? It's this very simplistic view of military operations.
Okay, has any of them
right?
worked?
Like,
what is different about this one?
actually,
Why will
some
this
of them
one work?
have worked, right? Like one of the problems that you're having, right, is that like you're looking at this from a purely ideological perspective. Israel is looking at survival.
I asked you a concrete
right?
question. Which of them have worked? Don't answer with ideology. Tell me
Actually,
which one
I would
worked.
say all of them because Israel's still standing. When Israel responded, why is that?
Wait, how are you
why is that
laughing
funny?
at that?
Wait, hold on. Wait.
Yeah, I agree. The firebombing in Dresden
Israel's
worked.
still standing is what's preventing.
Just to be ultra clear, the only reason that Israel exists today is through extensive military action. Whether you're talking about the original independence of 48, whether you're talking about the expansion borders of 67, or whether you're talking about their repulsion of dozens of different types of incursions from PLO people on the borders, from other Arab nations attacking them over and over and over again, that is the answer. That is the only reason. So when you ask, has Israel's military action worked so far? Even the Arab states would agree, yeah, that's the only reason. That is the reason why Egypt now recognizes Israel as a nation. That is the reason why Jordan now recognizes Israel as a nation.
We're not talking about Israel surviving. We're talking about ending terrorism.
It's convenient for your argument. It's just so disingenuous.
Oh my God.
Why I laughed is because that's also the reason why Israel is under threat, right? Like these actions that we're talking about.
No.
are also the same reason
Israel's
people
under
are
threat.
fighting. Yes,
Are
the
you
reason why
serious?
Israel under threat. Why Israel doesn't it feels like it's
This is
under
what
siege.
happens.
It always tells us within its propaganda that it's under siege from all sides. Yes, this is why it's
you're
under
talking
threat.
about a
It's
bunch of
military
people.
actions. Hold
You're
on.
talking about a bunch
Jews
of
have been under
people.
threat in the Middle East.
Out of every
Since
single
2011.
level.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Let Prime finish, Quibbles. Prime, go ahead.
I haven't interrupted you. Let me finish, right? So, what I'm saying is that Israel's decisions up till now have led it to be under threat. Now, I'm not saying that these people should be killed or wiped out or anything. I'm saying that the political and military decisions have led to this. Expelling the Palestinians have led to this. These military actions that Eris is talking about. Hello, Eris. Nice to see you again. Have put them in this situation. And so when I laugh at that to say that, well, that's why Israel is still standing. Well, yeah, well, Israel didn't have to take this path. Israel could have been a cosmopolitan, multi-ethnic country. It had that ability, but it didn't take that.
When did it have that ability?
Lebanon tried that. It didn't really work out for them.
Before it expelled the Palestinians.
Wait, when?
Lebanon didn't expel the Palestinians.
You have such a misunderstanding of history.
When did Israel have the ability to be a multi-ethnic paradise?
Before it
Never.
started ethnic cleansing people.
No, stop. Sorry,
You're
wait,
saying
no.
40s,
Like, okay,
I think
wait.
before
There's
they were
a
a country.
there's a very niche period in the British Mandate between 20. I think, Aris, you can correct me on this. 1925, 28. Between that period, when Britain tried to set up a national assembly system where there was basically like one national assembly would be Arab and the other one would be 50-50 Jewish and Arab. I think the Arabs. Wait. Just let me finish a fucking sentence. Like the Arabs initially said no. I think they were. Maybe it was the one where they were close to considering, but then the Zionist side said no, and then it was never going to fucking happen. But yeah, anyway. But yeah, there was one period where there could have been a binational one-state solution.
You know how many Jews are in Hebron right now?
There is not one period. It is not true that there was one period. That is something happened in 28. Something very noticeable happened.
Wait, hold on, let Prime. Wait, hold on, wait, real quick, wait. Okay, wait. Let Prime go, then Quibble, then go, and then we'll go from there. Okay, go.
Quibble, you need to chill with the Japanese too, brother. Just
Well,
wait
hold
for
on.
our
Quibble's
niggas to
barely
finish
got
first.
any of his own time to talk. To be fair, okay.
Alright.
Prime go, and then Quibble go.
Trust, I've given him time as well. Prime, go ahead.
Okay, I'm saying there's a chain of events here. I'm saying that when you say that Israel is standing because of all these military actions, that gives the impression that this was the only path. That they must have taken this brutal path to still be existing. I'm saying along the way there have been political decisions, right? Many of them, hundreds of them, thousands of them. Where there was a different path, right? That could have put us in a more equitable situation. We haven't taken that, and here we are. So to say that, like, well, Israel's still standing, well, the path that it took led to October 7th, right? Now, I condemn the Hamas attack, right? I condemn like the slaughter of civilians, all that, done, right? But like, let's understand this. In what was it? So in 2018 to 2019, in Gaza, they had the March of Return, right? It was a peaceful protest, exactly what people were saying that you got to do. Tens of thousands of people participated in those. Well, what was Israel's response? It had snipers lined up on the wall of Gaza shooting at the civilians. Like 200 plus people.
Can we start on the first point?
Excuse me. Shut up.
What year was this in?
Hold on. 2018 to 2019. It was like.
Could you provide a source for like
Sure,
snipers explicitly targeting civilians in that protest?
When the UN investigated, only 2 of 498 were found to have been a threat to the soldiers. So.
Yeah. Hold on. I'm gonna
asking when was
shut
there
up,
a time
Quibble.
when they had a choice?
Shut the fuck up.
Quibbles, let him finish.
So
Prime, wrap it up. So
there was the Great March of Return, right? So 2019. The response was those civilians were shot at. Okay, and then the UN puts a report in 2015 that says by 2020 Gaza will be uninhabitable. Right? That's a UN report. And now in 2023, when nothing happens, right? When the indignities and the lack of resources and the lack of employment and the lack of care festers for this long, then October 7th happened. It shouldn't have happened the way it did. Absolutely not. But these are all from political decisions, a chain of events. So I condemn that chain of events. That's what I'm saying. Done.
Lovely man's. Quibbles, go ahead.
You just said like 15,000 things. I'm not going to respond to all of them.
Like
I know Eris is already.
Prime,
I know Eris is already looking up the thing where you said that they targeted civilians. It's obviously not true. I'm sure Eris is looking it up though. So the broader point is when you make this claim that Israel had this option, this moment in its history where, oh my God, it could have totally have been all kumbaya and lovey-dovey and everything would have been great. And you're talking about 48. You're talking about a time when a bunch of literal Holocaust survivors literally left the camps and literally on foot walked all the way to Israel in some cases, okay? And were literally still in their stripes from Auschwitz. Okay, you're talking about a time when upwards of 900,000 people across literally every single other country in the entirety of the Middle East, okay, were forced from their homes, okay, to go into this one tiny location, okay, 1/4 of the amount of land in all of Israel proper and also the West Bank and also Gaza, 1/4 as much land as the land that was stolen from them across the rest of the Middle East. Okay, you're talking about those people who were immediately, as soon as they declared independence, okay, attacked by literally every single neighbor that they have. The idea that they had this moment for kumbaya is just on its face absurd, and you should be ashamed of yourself.
Quibbles, are you saying that? Are you saying that
Yeah,
the Jew?
go
Are
fuck
you referring?
yourself.
Wait. Are you referring to the Jewish Exodus? Because that happened after independence,
Yeah.
not before.
Yeah,
It
Wasn't
happens
it
over like a
directly
30-year
after.
period.
It's very clear that it was already on that trajectory.
But no, wait. So, but do you think so?
It was
Holocaust
already
survivors, Holocaust
there were
survivors
multiple
who are still
exoduses.
so Holocaust survivors who
Yeah,
are still
but
in
the
their
number he's
stripes. Do you think that's
referencing.
like an accurate characterization of like
Yes.
the
Yes.
standard Israeli who was there in 48?
When many of the not by 48,
No.
they weren't literally in their stripes. They were obviously still people who were escaping the Holocaust in 48. But yes, they are. It is
Yeah, and some
literally
of them
true.
were
They
armed, and
very
some of them were
well numbered
terrorists who
people.
attacked the British, and some of them
It is-
committed
it is
massacres. And there you
literally
see,
true.
yeah.
I don't
yeah.
think
The
I don't
number
think
of
it's
terrorists and the number
productive.
of Holocaust
Wait, I
survivors
don't
are
think it's
not equivalent
productive
numbers.
to argue that Israel's foundation or the way it was created was ethical. The creation of the majority of countries is usually a very unethical process, right?
The
That's why
question of whether
I
it's
just-
ethical is a
monarchists
different
have
question.
issues with
It's
it,
not that
right?
have an
So
option of
yeah, I
kumbaya.
understand, right?
Oh,
But
wait,
like
hold on, wait.
Very
I'm sorry,
harsh way to
hold
talk
on.
about
Wait,
Holocaust
just a
survivors.
real quick, hold on, real quick fact check, okay? Something from I'm wrong. My understanding is in 1948, the vast majority of Jewish people that are in Israel were absolutely not World War II Holocaust survivors. Those people didn't start immigrating into Israel en masse until after Israel won the initial 48 War for Independence. So the initial people there were, we would call them settlers, right? Or people brought in under the auspices of British, the Palestinian Mandate. Okay, all right.
So there's a point of clarification.
From where? From
Really,
all of
rest
Europe, from the United States, from people
there's-
from
hold
all over
on.
the, yeah.
There's something really important because I actually kind of disagree, Eris. I think it is actually important to talk about the founding of
Oh my
Israel,
God.
because I think the founding of Israel is likely one of the more peaceful nation states founded in the world. You have the Jordanian mandate. You have, obviously you have like French mandate and, Lebanon and stuff, but like from the British, you have the mandate for Jordan. You have a mandate for Palestine. You have a mandate for Israel. All of these, this area is kind of simultaneously promised to three people. You have Jewish Zionist movement that is mostly socialists coming in and collectivizing money so that they can buy land, as well as individual Jewish Zionists. And yes, there are scuffles. There are Jews coming in, taking public land that may or may not be there. Well, no, it starts off as scuffles, right? There are absolutely Palestinian Arabs that move to areas where Jews move, because everywhere that Jews moved in Israel was an area where the population increased because they gave these people jobs and they made the land more arable. And yes, then you have things like the Jaffa riots that really kick off tensions between these groups. And yes, you have the British doing things. But another thing that's important to recognize is, Destiny says, well, look, these, fairly, because Quibbles is like, invoking imagery of everybody being like a Holocaust survivor in there, which is a little bit over the fucking top.
Haganah were still
right?
in their stripes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Sorry.
But the other thing that's important to note is that the other thing,
literally true.
The Haganah,
sure, like
were the Haganah still in their
0.1%.
stripes when they were killing people in the fucking? I'm sorry. I know that's not
So
true.
listen,
is it?
Listen.
Okay,
It is also
specifically,
important.
what I
hold
think he's
on,
referring
I'm
to
almost
is
done.
in.
It is almost. It's so close. So listen. It's also important to note.
Honestly, I feel like the leftists here should
it's
really
also
give me
important to
reparations
note
in the form
it
of
was-
extra time to talk
it was
as payment
also-
for patriarchy.
It was also important to note. It was also important to note that when we talk about Holocaust survivors, it was the British that had established the white papers in 1939 that made it incredibly difficult for Jews and Zionists that were escaping growing tensions in Europe to go to Israel where they could buy fucking public land.
I agree. Open borders are base.
forced
We
into
shouldn't
it.
have a ethno state that keeps people out of coming into that
Okay, so
country.
then
That would
stop
be really
trying to
bad,
stop
right?
the Jews from moving into West Bank. If you believe that, stop trying to stop the
Oh my
Jews.
god, man.
Wait,
Yeah, I agree. That's
Quibbles,
the only
but
reform
if you
you
wanna
would
go back
make
to
is
that-
let
if you wanna
Jews-
go-
Oh my
Gaza
god.
because of that.
Quibbles, if you
Don't
want to go
kick the
back to
Jews out
that,
of-
Quibbles, if you want to
if
go
you
back to
think
that argument, if you want to go back to that argument about assuming that not wanting settlers to go to the West Bank is just an ethnic argument, if you were actually asking that question in good faith, you could just say, okay, let's say assume the West Bank is a state. Should Jews be allowed the right to immigrate there? You could ask me that, and I'd say, yeah, they should be. Of course, they should be allowed to. No one's entitled to an ethno state. But you're not going to ask that because you just want to assume that you're not isolating the variable.
Okay,
The problem with Jewish
but your
settlers going to the West
answer-
Bank is it's occupied territory, not because they're fucking Jewish. Jesus Christ.
Is Gaza occupied territory?
Legally, according to some organizations, yes, because of the blockade and
I'm
the control of the
asking you.
airspace. But
I'm asking you.
And what-
is it controlled by
So-
Israel currently?
Yeah,
yeah, the
answer for
border
Gaza is
part, the
clearly
population
yes. The answer
registry,
is
the
clearly yes.
airspace, the border,
Yes,
yeah.
The answer
So
is
quite a lot
yes,
of it.
because they control the border? No.
Well,
And the
and the
day-to-day life, it is
wait,
controlled by the
mate.
dictatorship of Hamas.
They control
Hold
the
on, hold on.
population registry. They control who goes in and out. They control what goes in and out. They control the maritime border, the
Hold on,
airspace.
yeah, and
Controlling
hold on,
your
wait.
border
Regardless of that, hold on. Regardless of that, Israel has literally gone to war at least twice over the closure of the Suez Canal for Egypt. Okay, so Israel clearly recognizes, along with the rest of the world, that blockades are a casus belli for going to war. That is a reason, a cause for war. So yes, if you're having a total
Okay, so
blockade on a
blockades are
population.
occupation?
In a way, yes, of course. If it's an extended blockade where you're controlling everything going in and out of a certain population, right, is essentially an occupation, yes.
An occupation. So did we? Okay, that is a very interesting view. So you think that anytime that you blockade,
It's
someone,
not
that's
an interesting view.
occupation.
You're just getting you're just quibbling, as your name suggests.
It's
over
a-
the fucking
Blockade is
term.
one of like 5 variables that makes an occupation. That's okay.
It's
I think the
maybe
idea that
necessary
any
but
blockade is
You're
an
insufficient.
spurging
occupation
over the
is a little
language
silly.
instead of the issue.
Particularly given that the
Whoa.
blockade in this particular case is not even done exclusively by Israel.
What did that
It's
have to
also
do
done
with?
by
I was asking you about settlers. I'm sorry, but like,
So the-
can you still
I
not
don't even know
understand?
what you
Sorry, I
guys
want
are
to.
talking about right now. Everyone's
If
just
you're
jumping
talking
around.
about Gaza, which is a place that is an ethno-state, which has forced out all of its Jews, or excuse me, rather, Israel has forced out all of the Jews who are living in Gaza, right? In order for Hamas to take over, because they were concerned, they correctly were understood that if Gaza were under the control of Hamas, immediately every single Jew who was living in Hamas-controlled Gaza would be killed, right? Given that, they forced out all of the Jews. So I'm asking, do you think that that was an appropriate action for Israel to do?
What, to remove the settlers from Gaza?
Yeah.
In and of itself, I think it was probably the right thing to do, but not the way that they did it.
Why?
No, the unilateral disengagement
Why
was a bit fucking
Why was
cringe
it the right thing to do?
because they were there illegally.
Wait, they were
Okay,
there
we can move on. It's
illegally?
fine. Yeah, they were
No, hold
there
on. Let's not
illegally.
move on. They were there illegally. So you think that? Hold on. So you think
my
that the
God.
Jews should be kicked out because they were against Hamas law?
Either way, I think
It's
we've
not against-
established that ethnic cleansing
internet
can
said
happen
that.
for the sake of peace,
Yeah,
right?
Okay. If
Um,
you
you're
were inside
being
somebody's
ethnic-
internationally defined territories, undocumented, illegally, or any other way, all countries would kick them out. The United States does it, Canada does it, Germany does it, every other
Okay.
country in the world
You
does
think
it.
that it's
Why do the
appropriate-
Palestinians not have the right to do that?
Okay, so do you think it is appropriate? Like everyone here seems to be like, "Ooh, let's do open borders," right? Do you think that it is appropriate for Jews to move back into Gaza now?
For Jews to move back into Gaza is probably not a smart idea, but are you talking about Israeli settlers or
Should
just
they
like
be
Jewish
permitted
people,
to-
period?
No, I'm saying Jews, not Israelis.
Should they be
Jews.
permitted? Of course, they should be
But to be
permitted
clear,
to go
the
there.
people who are living
Yes,
there
of course,
prior-
Jews
the
should be
people
permitted.
who are
But when
living
we're
there-
talking about the pullback, the Israeli government pulled back the settlements.
Yes, they weren't Israeli settlements; they were Jewish settlements.
They were still illegal settlements.
Yeah, but we call
Right.
them Israeli because they're Jewish. I think that's the point that he's trying to
Were the-
demonstrate,
were the
right?
settlements
No,
Because
no, no,
the
wait,
regions
wait,
don't
wait, wait.
merge
We
with
call
the
them,
not
hold on, wait,
Israeli.
Let's be clear. We call them Jewish/Israeli settlements because the Jewish people going there are not like randomly stumbling into Gaza from some other part of the world. They're Israeli people that are moving from Israel to Gaza. That's what's happening. That's why they're considered Jewish/Israeli settlements, but that's why they're by Israel.
A huge portion
there's
of
a-
them, yeah. I would agree with you, but there was a consecutive Gazan Jewish presence that has been there for hundreds of years. That got
Yeah,
people
but
out.
that's different
The thing
than
is,
the
I want to
illegal
be. I
settlements.
There might be
supported
some very
that
small
move.
numbers. There might be some
right?
very small numbers, but the issue is that the ownership of Gaza by Israel is not official territory, right? These are still armistice lines, right? So they don't really even 100% shouldn't even have control of that territory, but they do. They have a full embargo there. So the idea of Israeli citizens buying territory or moving into there is kind of just as reprehensible as the West Bank. It's weird to be buying and moving into a place, buying territory and moving into a place that you have like under military control, essentially.
Yeah, no,
So,
I
so I
completely
thought
agree with
the issue was that they
So,
were extending
hold
the
on.
border, and that's why you guys would have issues with Israelis moving over there. But if they're just
But
moving
it's
there
not
but
that. They just
not
don't like
expanding in
they
any
just
way,
don't like
then how
Jews
does this
living
make
in
sense?
Oh, do we just all just don't
It
like
has
Jews?
nothing
or
to do.
what
Hold
you-
on, wait. Where does hold on? The
No, you don't
anti-Semitism.
like Jews living in the West Bank or Gaza. That's different than you don't like
The
Jews.
problem
writ
isn't.
large.
Hold on.
I don't like Israeli
The problem
settlers
is
in
not
the
Jews.
Gaza Strip. What?
Yeah,
Why did the Israeli settlers go there? Did they just go there because
They aren't Israelis. They're Jews. That's my point.
Tons
No,
of
they're
them were
coming from
Israelis. They went to
Israel.
Israel and
They're
then
coming
into the
from
Gaza Strip.
Israel.
They went Israel and then into the Gaza Strip. For
Steven,
what reason? To
when
build
you're
settlements.
talking, when you're
Okay.
talking about these Jews, you are talking about people who are literally, explicitly refusing to join the Israeli military, refuse to vote in Israeli elections. You're talking about people who are radical Jews. They
Are
are
the
not
Amish not
radical
Americans?
Israelis. They're radical Jews.
That's
If you're
fine
talking
that you
about
say that.
if you're talking about the settlements, no, if you're talking about the settlements who are on the border of the West Bank, that's different than the ones that are inside of Gaza. They're not the same. To
it
call them
doesn't- it
Israelis
is-
is flatly wrong.
Do they enjoy protection from the IDF?
Everyone did. When Gaza was under occupation,
Hold on, wait. Okay, then in that
everyone
case,
did.
okay,
At that time,
okay.
hold up.
I am about.
At
Oh,
that
no,
time-
let's clear this up. You just said everyone is. I will fully concede to you. Is there examples of the IDF shooting on Israeli settlers that are encroaching on
Yes.
Arab Palestinian property in the West Bank?
Yes, they forced out all 9,000 of these people from Gaza. Yes.
From Gaza, yes. They forced those out. That's not the same
Right.
as everybody there has equal protection and rights by the IDF. That's not true.
Equal protection is different than whether or not these people were Israelis.
No, they. Hold on. You can't be putting forth this argument in good faith, okay? The settlements let's talk about the West Bank. The settlements in the West Bank from
No, we're not
Jewish.
talking about the West Bank. We're talking about Gaza.
Okay, from Gaza.
I think there's some
Gaza is
miscommunication going
occupied
on.
territory. Those are armistice lines that were won militarily that aren't internationally recognized. Israel shouldn't be having people move into there. Full stop. Easy.
But Israel isn't. These are people. These are Jews. That's the point. They're not Israelis.
Who subsidizes the settlements?
Were they ever
They live
recognized
there-
by?
they live there the whole time?
Not the Israeli government. Certainly not the Israeli
I
government.
asked you in West Bank.
Jews
Who
do,
subsidizes
but
the settlements?
No, he's
We're not
asking you.
talking about West Bank. This is my
Okay.
point. We're talking about Gaza.
I actually don't know. I don't know who supported those settlements.
The
in
answer is
Gaza.
that it's private funding.
Eris, I was going to give you a response, and
It's usually
to
socialist
who called me
charities.
out. No problem. Look, like I said, I brought up the March of Return in 2019, right? I put a link within the chat section here in this Discord to Haaretz. It shows it interviewing an IDF soldier who was there. He was.
Oh my
the
God!
sniper-
Stop. These are the worst things ever. Don't not the
No,
videos
hold
of the
on.
one
Wait a minute,
interview.
hold on.
Okay.
Excuse me, hold on. Let me respond, and you can respond afterwards, right? So he interviews them, and he talks about how what he was doing, and mostly they were targeting the knees of people who were part of this protest. Who were they targeting?
Okay,
They were
fine.
targeting
You've
major
convinced me. That
insiders.
one individual
What makes
soldier
a
was an
major?
idiot.
Excuse me. Shut up. Hold on. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. What makes a major insider? A person who is has their back to the wall, like the wall between Israel and Gaza, and who's holding a microphone or megaphone. That is a major insider. They 200 plus people were killed, 8,000 wounded. They were hitting ambulances. They were when people came and got wounded. So this was a whole operation that happened over the course of a year and a half. So yeah,
Okay, if
this
you have a
happened.
source, if you have a source that extends beyond some random dude, okay, then I would like
I
to
have
hear
more.
it.
Sure,
If
I got
you
plenty
have
of those.
one
So,
random dude, then I'll condemn your one random
sure,
dude.
I got
Your one
plenty of them,
random
no
dude
problem. But
seems
I've
like a
just
jerk.
given you a
Okay,
direct.
maybe
I've
he
given
should
you
go
a
to jail.
person who has got direct testimony of exactly what was happening, and
Okay.
an article talking
Did you-
about that
Things
situation.
that are-
But I guess that's not good enough. No, I can give
Okay.
you another
I
one,
like
but you're
things-
bullshitting.
Hold on.
Could you just
I've got-
DM that to me
Wait.
because it's not loaded?
I've got evidence. I've got evidence from insiders that prove that the American government has alien bodies.
Sure,
all right?
no,
And they
hold
work
on.
on these alien bodies.
Okay, hold on.
Don't
Stop.
bullshit me.
Okay, wait, hold on. Okay, stop. Hold on. Okay, all right. Okay, Prime Kaiser's talking about the 2018 to 2019 Gaza border protests. Okay, this was the great. They call it the Great March of Return. Okay, like 3 different, 2 international organizations. Okay, Human Rights Watch, Amnesty International, and then B'Tselem or whatever, however the fuck you pronounce it. and UN officials all agree that IDF forces on the walls of this protest were basically shooting and killing protesters, probably for no good reason. I think there were about 500 killed. The IDF claims it is because they've been throwing rocks and shit. Most independent investigations say there was like 1 or 2 of those deaths that were just militarily. Seems like the IDF probably acted completely improperly there. Okay, that's
Thank you.
Which protest we're talking about?
Yeah, just to give one of the
It's called
sources
the-
for that.
Oh,
Look
you
up
don't know.
Google,
Wait,
Google,
Quibbles, ask
great,
for
Google
sources.
the,
What the
Google
fuck?
the, I'm telling you, Google Great March of Return, okay, or 2018, 2019 Gaza border protests, okay? There's several
This he doesn't
international
know.
organizations that have been doing this, okay?
Wait,
Can I
hold on.
just
This was
correct?
a
I need to.
fake news.
This happened for a year and a half, and he doesn't know what it is. Amazing.
I need to correct something that happened earlier. The original settlements in Gaza were the original
You weren't
settlements.
fucking listening. You were up
the-
your own ass. Sorry, I'm done.
The
So,
original.
Eris, the thing that I was... Yeah, go ahead.
The first proper settlements in Gaza after 67 were established by the Labour government, not by private owners anyway.
Well, and to speak to one thing, Eris, when I looked up the list of population, there's a wiki page for population settlements of the population statistics of the settlements in Gaza, and all of them seem to have been created in the 1970s or later. So maybe there was a community there that was then organized into the settlement. But
Well, yeah, I mean, these are all Jewish settlements, right? So like they get mushed together. They don't end up as separate settlements. So looking at it per settlement is just not going to get you anywhere. You have to look at it as individual Israelis, individual Jews in the region. But regardless, I completely agree with the pullout of Gaza ideologically. I don't know if I agree with it after the consequences of October 7th. But I certainly agreed with it when it happened. The point that I was trying to get across is that sometimes you have to do population exchanges for land for the sake of peace to prevent something that's far more harsh and far more dangerous. So it's also why it's somewhat disingenuous when you call Israel an ethno-state when basically every state in the Middle East operates off of demographics. Right, when we saw the consequence of those types of demographics on October 7th. So it's very strange to hyper focus on that when the entire reason why we removed Gazans from the area were because they were Jews. There was no investigation on like, okay, which one are you a descendant of this indigenous person, or no, did you come with this group, right? Or are you from this group? There was nothing. It was just Jews, you're gone. And I think that that's totally fine because I think that was deserved. That land should go to the Palestinians, right? For the sake of peace, and I do think that the West Bank should. But like this idea that somehow demographics and somehow like ethnicity is just like a unique thing that Israel cares about is just not true. It's a norm for the region, and it's a somewhat needed norm because of the historical animosity between different ethnic groups of the region.
I'm fucking confused because nobody's pushing back on the fact that she just said that it's the norm for the region to be like fucking ethnically based when like 99.9%
All right,
of the
Q. Let's say Israel just rams fucking Jewish immigration for 20 years, and in 20 years there are 80% Jews living from the river to the sea, 80%, 20% Palestinian, and then they say, all right, we're going to free Palestine. It's a free Palestine from the river to the sea, one state, we all get voting rights. Would that be cool?
What if they just like displace all the Palestinians and
No, they just let them stay.
Lauterbach is saying, what if so many Jewish people were in Israel that by the time that population blew up, such that if all of historic Palestine was then made one state, what if there were so many Jewish people there that Jewish people would still represent an 80% majority compared to 20% Arab Palestinians? If Gaza and the West Bank were incorporated into Israel proper and everyone was given equal rights, would you be okay with that?
That's exactly why they had a problem with the initial Zionist migration, right? Because it was changing the demographics of the region. And they had very good reason to be concerned about that. So
what does Q's answer to that? Would he be okay with that? If the demographics heavily favored Jewish people, such that 80% were Jewish, 20% were Palestinian Arab, would that be an okay one-state solution?
How the fuck is it being done is the question.
They all just say they all migrate to Israel.
Yeah, it'd
say they built 3 fucking massive cities and fill them with Jews.
And Jews
so
all
that there
over
are
the
more
world
Jews than
continue to
Arabs from the
migrate
river
to
to the
Israel,
sea. Yeah, and then they just say, okay, now it's one state. We'll call it Palestine. But there's like 80% Jews living there now.
Who gives a fuck? As long as you're not killing the Palestinians, right?
You'd be okay with that?
Okay. What Palestinians are not okay with that?
You think the Palestinians would be okay with that? With being that 20% minority in Palestine?
If it's first of all, if it's called
I'm just going to give the answer to you. They would not be okay with it. They would be
The
very
majority
angry
of
with that.
Palestinians will only accept a state where they have the majority control. That's a statistic.
A majority of Israeli Jewish people also support removing all Arabs from the country. It's like 40 to 50%.
Absolutely.
Wait, are you saying that's a Kahanist perspective? Are you saying the majority of Israelis are Kahanis?
Yeah, by
No,
the
wait.
polling.
The polling data shows that I think around like 45 to 47% of people in Israel, or might even be a little bit over 50, support removing all Arab Palestinians from the region. However, an even higher percentage of Palestinians poll favorably. I think it's like 75% that action should continue against Israel, even if they had a one-state solution to continue to expel Jewish people from the region. So, I mean, like, both sides fucking hate each other.
Whoa.
Okay.
And to speak to that a little bit,
that is being...
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Fine. This idea that we shouldn't push back on this is I think we kind of already saw some of it, but it's really, really important to also understand the historical context in the sense that before Israel is even a state, right? The British are having to step in to separate and make it illegal for Jews to move into areas where they are afraid that there will be too many Jews in an area, which would thus make it a majority Jewish area. It is the British with the white papers that are intentionally making sure that Jews only settle in certain areas because of the historical fact that Aris and Loderboxer is discussing, which is that
Fabian, are you saying that the fault of this entire conflict between two indigenous peoples fighting over land is actually the actual colonial power, Britain?
I place a large
indigenous groups committed terrorist attacks.
Hold on. Wait, hold on, real quick. Hold on, just real quick. Because
Fabian hasn't spoken enough.
Wait, because that was an insanely ridiculously that was a ridiculously pro-Zionist take. Britain did not materialize out of nowhere the desire to create Israel. Okay, this was through insanely aggressive, quasi politically militant action by pro-Zionist people across Britain in order to get things like the Balfour Declaration to actually be declared so that they can have a place in Palestine carved out for them. That didn't come out of nowhere. It wasn't just Britain that did that, to be fair.
What do you mean have a place in Palestine carved out for them?
As in Jewish Zionists, prior to the Balfour Declaration, were trying incredibly hard to get Britain to try to carve out some place that they could be moved to, that the Jewish people could have a country for, and it ended up being in the Middle East.
Sure. So what? Who is going to take over Palestine as Syria?
Palestinians, the people living there, the Arab Palestinians.
Okay. Oh, so the Palestinians who have never had a king and have never had a ruler in that area. And have never had a government.
Hold on, I'm sorry. But at the same time, from the 30s to the 40s, didn't the exact same thing happen in Syria and Iraq? Didn't literally both of those groups of people protest? Wasn't that the impetus for the 36 to 39 Arab revolts? Is that they saw other Arabs in the region revolting and then getting their own states? So if those guys could do it, why couldn't the Palestinians? The Arab Palestinians.
Right. The British promise people this power or these states of their own, so long as they work to overthrow the Ottomans. Right. Like that's the
that
deal.
was one of the promises made. Sure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Right. Like so the deal is.
But I'm just saying that other Arabs
groups
that didn't have their own individual states. I don't think the Iraqis or the Syrians didn't have their own individual states, but they managed to revolt against the British people that were in the territory, and then they got their own states. So the Arab Palestinians probably thought they could have theirs too.
Right, but see, here's the thing: is that these people who have never had a king, never had a government, and never had power, the British said, you can have this area, an area in the region. And they said the same thing to the Jordanian monarchy, and they said the same thing to the Jews. And so the question is why is it specifically problematic for the Jews, but not for the other two?
Because the other two had already been there for hundreds and hundreds of years.
Okay, so and the Jews were living in Judea. The Jews were living in Judea.
There were 6,000 Jewish people in the region before
there were Jewish. There were Jewish Palestinians. Right. There were, but they were a smaller minority compared to the Arab population that lived there. Right?
Yes, you're right. And also during the Roman Empire, you had roughly 2 million people living in a region. And after the diaspora, after they were forced out, those numbers dwindled to a few 100,000. All the way up until this time. So even
totally agree. And if we want to do
technology,
a panel criticizing the Romans expelling Jewish people in Palestine, we can do that. But that's not what we're talking about right now.
Christ.
Right?
Okay.
No.
Your point is
you're trying to dismiss. You're trying to dismiss the idea of like why power and states were established in the region.
I'm not trying to dismiss it. I'm just saying that, listen, if you want to talk about like ultra-historic people's rights to some land, that's fine, okay? But the difference is that the Arab Palestinians were already there. The Jews had already been expelled. The Arab Palestinians have been living there for at least, 500 years at least? Right?
Okay, so Stephen,
How
Yeah.
long after you've been ethnically cleansed from a region do you cease to have claims to that area? Do your descendants cease to have claims to that area?
I don't know how long it would be, but if you're already completely gone and another group of people is already
But they
there,
weren't
You're
they
not
probably
completely gone.
They
Careful.
weren't
You're
completely
not
No, no, no.
completely gone.
They were
There's still
essentially
600,000 of you there. You're not completely gone.
Hold
But
on.
continue.
Wait.
Ah,
There were
come on.
600,000 Jewish
Yes.
Palestinians.
No.
Yes.
Six
Wait,
There were
thousand.
6,000, not
No,
The,
600,000.
hold on.
600,000.
Wait.
No,
The Al
no.
Akna,
In
wait.
47, prior to
No,
prior to
not
this
47
all,
before
there
the
were-
Balfour Declaration.
Yeah, you guys are dealing with different time periods before
Yeah,
the
stop.
Zionist.
Not 47.
The whole of the Palestinian exodus, okay, in 48 was about 700,000 Arab Palestinians, okay? There's no way there were 600 Jewish Jewish Arabs or whatever there prior
Not
to Britain shipping to the land.
600,000 Jews.
No,
In 47, there were
six.
600,000 Jews.
You're
No,
using different
600.
times. But like
We're talking about,
when he
we're talking
said
about the Balfour
6,000,
Declaration
he's
because
talking
that's
about
when
before the
Britain started
Balfour.
allowing them to move in.
We're talking before
What-
Britain,
wait, hold on.
okay? In
What
like 1800
number?
or whatever, there were like 6,000 Jewish people.
Yes.
6,000.
Wait, what year? 1900.
Before,
Oh,
wait,
yeah, in
before-
1900.
Before Britain started bringing all of them in, that was the thing. That's why the Arab Palestinians were mad there. Is because Britain had a mandate on the territory, and then a whole bunch of Jewish people started moving in. That's why the people that had been there for hundreds and hundreds of years were getting
Yeah.
upset, right?
It was like 2 to 3% of the population was Jewish in an area
That's why
that
they were upset.
even during Roman times could have supported 10 times the amount of people, right? This is kind of
You want to know another reason why
It's
they
like,
were upset?
1923?
So it's like
Wait,
what year are we
if your
talking about?
argument is that that the Palestinian people deserve a state because they live in the region, so that's the right to statehood, then like why does that not apply to Jews that move there later? Like what right do people have to a state? Is it an ethnic right? Because if it's like an ethnic
No,
right,
the right.
then
Hold on.
like
We don't have to guess. The right is the UN Charter. Okay, in the 40s said that a group of people living in an area, okay, have a right to self-determination. That they have a right to not be military
But
infringed
so,
upon.
so then you're pro state of Israel being established in this regard. Because a group of
The
people
idea is
live in
that
an
there's still
area.
Palestinians there, and they deserve the right to self-determination, and they also haven't been absorbed into other countries.
Yeah,
Right?
also-
They
and
haven't-
also-
Well,
they
let's say we
haven't
get to
gotten
let's say
rid
we
of
get to
their
1917,
F-35,
right? Like,
which
yeah,
is
let's
its
say
own
we get to.
nation. But
let's say we're-
regardless,
okay.
the main reason why they were upset, not just because of demographics issues, that the area in general operated pre-Israel Palestine operated in a very feudal-like system that was a carryover from the Ottoman Empire. So the majority of the Arab lands were not actually owned by those individual Arabs who were working the land. They were owned by these wealthy Arab landowners. And what was starting to happen was wealthy Jewish groups or just lots of fundings from Zionist groups over Europe would start buying the land, whereas the indigenous or Palestinian Jews, as you want to call them for this time period, were mostly poor, very religious, could not afford to do so. So they start buying all of this land from the rich Arab landowners, and then they start kicking the so-called serfs or peasants or whatever you want to call them who were working the land at the time, were mostly Arabs, right, off of the land in order to have Jews work the land instead, right? So that's how that operated, right? So legally, they were technically correct, right? When it comes to like purchasing land, I think we can all agree that morally it's like pretty abhorrent. So they had complete right reasons for that. But regardless, I can't believe I'm saying this, but I really think when it comes to the current issue and the current situation of what's going on, discussing the details of this history is somewhat irrelevant. And which feels like a lot coming from me, but it's somewhat irrelevant, right? Like when we're trying to actually talk about what's going on with Israel and what's going on with Palestinians, because Palestinians are very divided themselves on how to look at the past regardless. So right now you have a country, the country of Israel, which is an established country, recognized by the majority of the world, right? That is a U.S. and major Western ally. It is a Western liberal democracy. Okay, it participates in liberal Western traditions of freedom of press, religion, LGBT rights. Okay, it's the only country in the region that releases private documentation to scholars every 20 or 30 years, which is something I'm personally really passionate about. Okay, and you could say that these things are irrelevant. They are not irrelevant, right? It's an established nation, right? And even the nations around that are not democratic have a right to exist, right? If you believe in any country has the right to exist. If you're an anarchist, fine, you could be consistent. So I'm just saying that Israel's existence is right now. No, okay, one second. I'm going to finish.
Here.
Give me some reparations as a leftist. Come on. Okay. So, I mean, for being a woman. So when it comes to looking at this entire thing, you have to understand that Israel's entire existence, this is an Arab-Israeli conflict from an Israeli's perspective, right? So Israel's entire existence is completely it is literally hanging by a thread right now. And this is how every Israeli feels, no matter how extremely lefty, no matter how much they've fought for Palestinian rights regardless. So this is something that you have to consider. How do you think the United States is going to react if they think that their entire country might get wiped off the map tomorrow?
Yeah, sure. Okay, so here's the problem.
Jesus.
And I'm going to ask this question to you all. Was South Africa a democracy during apartheid? Was the United States a democracy during American apartheid, during Jim Crow? You have hold on. I literally just started talking.
Nigga. Quibbles, let him cook. Frank, go ahead.
Well, to be fair, you asked the question and then got mad when he answered.
I don't understand why you ask a question if you don't want an answer.
Paul, shut up, Quibbles. Obviously, I was continuing talking. You can answer after I've done talking. You get this. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. Any which way. So yeah, when you have a portion of your population, ethnic minority, a large ethnic minority, who cannot fully participate within that society, what people need to understand is that during apartheid, during South African apartheid, during American apartheid, that this is not a passive thing, simply laws that exist in the air. And people just like exist in this atmosphere and just go by it. It's an active kinetic thing. So the population takes part in denying people their rights, enforcing those racial laws. So what I'm saying is that, like, you can say that, in Israel you have a vote. True. Yes, they have.
What racial laws does Israel have against Israeli Arabs?
Hold on, Eris, please. You can say that they have a vote.
You're making an analogy.
Shut up! Shut the fuck up! You can't do that. You can't accomplish that. Shut the fuck up. Thank you. Anyway, I'm literally almost done. I've been quiet this entire time, so shut up. Thank you.
Let him
so you can say that they have these structures, and they do have those structures. But if those structures don't actually aren't open to the people, right, to millions of individuals, when they're locked out of that, is that actually a democracy? Is a mockery of that? So this gets trotted out. Israel is the only liberal democracy in this area. I say that's actually a lie. If you look at how it runs, right, how it enforces its laws brutally, then it certainly is not. So I
make the exact same argument for the United States.
Hold on, I was like one sentence.
We've heard it.
I was one sentence from finishing. So shut the fuck up. I'm going to say that sentence. So once again,
15 seconds ago.
Right, shut the fuck up. Thank you, dumbass.
Come on. Okay, Brian, please.
So just my last sentence. So I'm just saying, was the American apartheid during that? Were we a democracy? Was South Africa during that apartheid? Were they a democracy?
I've heard your question. You're just repeating yourself. I've heard the question.
Just saying, I am the apartheid queen. I feel like I'm an authority here.
Here's the response to the question. Are you ready? Cool. Okay. If you're talking about the West Bank, obviously that is an occupation, and obviously it is not democratic. If you're talking about Gaza, obviously that is a dictatorship of Hamas, and so no, it is not democratic. You're talking about Area A of the West Bank, which is controlled by the Palestinian Authority. Obviously, that has not been elected either for a very long time. Therefore, that also is a dictatorship, a much better dictatorship than Hamas, but still a dictatorship. If you're talking about Israel proper, okay, in Israel proper, 20% of people in Israel proper are Arabs. Okay, there's an Arab on the Supreme Court currently. There's another prior. Okay, there is as a proportion, larger number of Arabs who are in the Knesset than there have ever in the history of the United States been Black people in our Senate. Okay, it is also true that there's a larger number of Arabs as a proportion of the society. But like the idea that it's not a democracy, okay, is silly. Are there problems? Absolutely.
It's a very flawed democracy, just like the United States.
Yes.
This all or nothing thinking.
Democracy doesn't mean perfect. It just means, yes, it is a democracy, right? It's just a yes or no. Hamas is not, right? Fatah is not, right? Lebanon, right? There are other places around this that are not, but yes, Israel is a democracy inside of Israel proper.
It's also relatively. We need to look
Lebanon
at
is
things relatively
sorry.
compared to the other countries in the region. It's insanely
Sorta.
democratic, right? And I'm like a fucking massive critic of Israeli policy and the Israeli government, right? There's a lot of structural racism within Israel, just like there's a lot of structural racism within the United States or Canada. There's a lot of dark past, but that doesn't mean they lose their democracy card. That doesn't mean that they suddenly don't get any credit for the fact that they're the only Middle Eastern country that releases their documentation openly to scholars every 20 years. I have never gotten any documentation open from Jordan. Why don't they give it? Egypt doesn't give it either. These things are relevant, right? These things are relevant. We should care about this.
I'm just
I don't
saying
know
when
why, like, just one, because there's flaws that they somehow just lose that card. It's just such a strange idea.
A massive military occupation that's lasted for decades, right? That's killed
Prime,
thousands
we
of people.
say
That's
stop.
yeah, I know. I get
Guys,
to acknowledge
guys,
that flaws
guys,
exist.
guys,
I'm getting that. I'm just
guys,
like remembering what the
guys.
flaw is.
Can
It
you
isn't
talk
that
about
like
Israel
it isn't
proper?
that like places are being gerrymandered. That's not the flaw, right?
Israel
The flaw
proper.
is
Can you talk about Israel
is a
proper?
massive.
Wait, I thought
ethnic
America was
suppression.
committing a genocide against trans people.
What the fuck? Okay.
That's always what that's why I've been hearing.
I'm just gonna
about
say
it.
sorry, just for Prime. Sorry, the reason
Wrench.
the reason people call Israel apartheid is not because like they're saying it's like South Africa exactly, like it's an apartheid state. They say it because the occupation has made the state so embedded in Palestinian affairs, especially in the West Bank, with the settlements and with the fact that they've already annexed parts of it. They clearly have ambitions to annex more. Is that they already live in a one-state reality, and if you think of it in that way, then it's if it's functionally kind of just like one state anyway, then that's why they see it as apartheid, because that's where you actually do have unequal rights. That's the argument they would generally make. But I don't know
agree.
if
they
agree
should
with that 100%,
accept
but
one of these fucking
My
deals
response to that is
and
very
govern
simple.
themselves.
My response
well,
to that
which
is very
deal
simple.
should the Palestinians have
If you're going-
accepted?
Fucking
if
one
you're
of
going
them.
Which one?
Okay.
Wow.
Correct. Okay.
I don't
If you're
know,
going-
37,
Which one?
Select item
48,
from list.
fucking 67, you know what I mean? Fucking one of them. They can fight for more
67.
rights.
What?
and
67 when they told fucking Egypt to take Gaza and Jordan to take the West Bank back. The Palestinians should have accepted that.
Again,
Proud
Okay,
three-state
you're-
solution
you're
in
never
Africa.
gonna.
I just want to
a
say
group
the
of
only
people-
reason why we
a
know
group
that
of people
Israel
who've
committed an
never-
ethnic cleansing in 1948 is because they released their documentation. To this day, Jordan has not released any of their
Okay.
documentation about what they've
But
done.
this is
So-
good.
so-
No,
But you-
Eric,
but
Jordan do after
Eric,
Black
here's the thing,
September, right?
Because these are
all
the
of
norms of
those-
the region. So when you use these terms and you don't apply them equally, it seems really strange.
I am
A lot of
applying
places in the
it. I
Middle East
apply
are not democracies.
American
They suck.
apartheid-
We should.
No,
Is
I am
Egypt a
not-
Holocaust state?
I don't. So
Is Egypt a Holocaust state?
To Loner, I have no idea about the history of Egypt, so I literally cannot tell you.
They
But
forced out more Jews than
that's-
Germany.
that's great. I mean, that's
Are
awful.
they a
That's awful.
Holocaust?
Excuse me. That's awful. Excuse me. That's awful.
Wait,
But
hold
no.
on, wait. Egypt killed more Jews than Germany?
No, not killed. Forced out a larger number as a percentage
Okay.
of their Jews than did Germany.
Okay,
There's a
wait, hold
larger-
on, wait.
I know people
A
call it a
larger
Holocaust
number
because they
as a
kick people
percent,
out.
a larger number percentage of their population. That's a way different statement.
You're
Okay,
sneaky
okay,
as
all right.
fuck with your points. Holy
I meant
shit.
percentages. I apologize. I meant percentages. If
A lot of countries have really fucked up
As a
ethnically bigoted
percentage.
stuff
Yeah.
in their past. The
Yeah,
argument that
like
we're
they
getting
were-
here is
then
that
the
Israel
point is,
continues to have
when you
fucked up ethnically bigoted stuff right now.
Yeah, and
So
do
to
these
be clear,
countries.
I don't sign on to what Lorna Bach says.
Surrounding it, though, right?
If you're going to make a
don't-
comparison,
like three people are
with
talking.
apartheid,
I just want to be.
This is
I just want to be
incomprehensible.
clear that
Yeah,
I don't
please,
sign on
one
to
at
No
a
one
what
can
time.
hear
Lorna
you.
Bach
Quibbles, take it
Please
easy.
stop speaking.
Yeah,
If you're
both
gonna
of
make the
you. One at
comparison-
a time. Yeah, go
Okay,
ahead.
if you're going to make the comparison to apartheid in relationship to the West Bank, I think that may be somewhat legitimate if you are likewise willing to make the comparison of Ethiopia or Iran or any number of places across both in Northern Africa and also the Middle East, which forced out as a percentage of their Jewish people a larger percentage than did Poland or Germany.
I agree.
That's not apartheid.
Okay,
that
I
would be
agree.
like
But
removal. That would be persecution or ethnic cleansing. That wouldn't be apartheid.
I don't know that history. but
Does anyone in this
Closer-
chat
what would be
support
closer to
ethnic
apartheid
cleansing?
is the way-
Hey, one at a fucking time. What
It's
the
not a
fuck?
matter of whether or not it's not a matter of whether or not you support ethnic cleansing. It's a matter of whether or not you're willing to condemn with the same level of forceful terminology the ethnic
100%.
cleansing of the rest of the Middle East.
Of
as
the
you're
Middle East in
talking
the
about-
40s? You think I would
There's a lot
support the
of
Middle East in the
argument.
40s?
There's the ongoing to great.
It's not a matter of whether you're
A lot of those places were monarchist fuck. Oh my
there
god.
is the ongoing to great conflict doesn't get any attention within the Western
Yeah.
media, and thousands of people are dying. And it's an ethnic cleansing campaign. I condemn that just as much. I want to bring more attention to that. So I'm 100% with you that a lot more countries need to be condemned, and I'm certainly willing to condemn America. So I don't know what this argument is. So like I disagree with Lorna Box talking about Israel's a little different from South Africa. I think actually the structures that we see in South Africa are very much mirrored within Israel, at least within the West Bank. So I'm actually perfectly comfortable.
It's a very clear difference, right? It's not based on a racial group; it's based on a national group, right? I don't have the same rights as you in the United States.
Yeah. Sorry, excuse me.
When I go to the United States, I don't have freedom of movement, right? I don't have the right to do a bunch of things. So am I being discriminated? Is that apartheid against me as a Canadian citizen?
Within the United States. What are you talking about?
I don't think
Well, she's not a citizen.
She's
Canadian.
But we're talking about it's a bit different when you talk about people living in their homes,
that's okay.
right?
But
Like in their
when you're
homelands.
in the United States, you can freely move in the United States.
What she's saying is there are restrictions.
The reason why it's different is I would call it an illegal occupation, right? That's like a much better descriptor than apartheid, right? Because Arabs within Israel are treated on the whole equally. So it's just dishonest. It's so dishonest to what happened in South Africa.
Bullshit. Okay, so the Constitution extends to people within America, right? So even if you're not a citizen, you still have rights. You still have protected rights. So let's put that aside. Talking about
Is
Israel,
that true?
right?
Non-citizens have the same rights as American citizens? I don't believe that's true.
Not the same.
The Constitution does extend to them. Yes, they do.
I'm just saying
I don't
that
believe so.
the apartheid
they have freedom of
you can't work with an occupation. It just doesn't legally work together.
Prime. Even the people who make the apartheid argument are not saying it's analogous to apartheid South Africa. They're calling it apartheid. They're calling it No, they're fucking retarded. They're calling it apartheid because it's a crime. That's why they're referring to international law against the crime of apartheid. That's what they're saying. Yes, it is. That's what
Okay, well, all right. I'm making my argument. I don't care about their argument. Then I'm making my argument, right? So if you think it's just me, that's fine. I'm saying that, like in apartheid, for instance, they gave you passes, right? And every one of the blacks, right, had to carry these passes, and the passes determined your movement. If you were the wrong age, or like I don't know, your birthday was wrong, what the fuck, like you couldn't go this place to point A or rather point B. The same thing is true within the West Bank, right? They have checkpoints all over the place to break up commerce, to break up movement, and they don't allow people to move around. They have separate roads, right? They have the Jewish roads, the highways, and then the dirt.
Separate IDs as well.
Okay.
Okay, I'm just saying that's really good. That's really good. That's really good. That's your take, Prime. But I'm just saying the steel man that actually makes sense.
Excuse me. Then I edit it. Then I'm talking
I'm sorry. Was I like 3 words into a sentence?
Wait, Prime. Let Loader go.
So the steel man of people calling it apartheid, and the reason B'Tselem and Amnesty and Human Rights Watch call it apartheid is because they're referring to it being a crime under international law, and because the crime of apartheid has not been recognized that many times since South Africa, it's got quite a lot of wiggle room for interpretation. But what they generally refer to is it's the practice. It's like a practice that happens under territory that they have a level of control of. And I think the level of control they have under the occupation is enough that it's like quite similar to it happening as if it would under one state. That's the argument they give. Anyway.
Lorna Box, how does that level of control? What are the mechanisms for those control? Can you explain those mechanisms to everyone?
What mechanisms? What? The apartheid mechanisms?
You're saying that there's a level of control within the West Bank, right? And because of this control, like people call it apartheid, right? So what are those mechanisms that people are saying is apartheid?
So even in Israel proper, I think there's a law where I think the nation state law was kind of why B'Tselem kicked off with it. I think the checkpoint system and like the policy of like generally like Hafrada, I think it's called, and then even in Israel proper, you could argue there's a law which allows developers to reject people's rights to build up property in certain areas if they think for ethnic reasons. Just on the grounds of ethnic reasons, and they would say that like falls under the legal definition of a system implemented with the intent to maintain like a domination of one group over the other.
Can you describe the West Bank? Because that's what I asked you about.
Well, yeah, the West Bank would probably be the splitting up of communities. The fact that an Israeli can drive like through Israel and the West Bank without having to like go through checkpoints, or the fact that there's like some towns there are even like separate road systems for Israelis and Palestinians. And I think you could also make the argument that the unequal distribution of
certain roads too.
Yeah, that's why it's called apartheid. Apart.
Yeah.
Yeah, apartheid. Yeah. And then there's also the unequal distribution of rights to develop land and to build on land in West Bank. That's like a big one because I think Israelis get approval quite a lot for building in their parts of the West Bank, and Palestinians get very low rates of approval. So yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah. And
Yeah, I think the
land
issue is
and
that
the
when
beating
you
of civilians, like the level of violence by the state against civilians, correct? Right. Um, uh, the fact that w- uh, the settlers, right, can enact that violence, and there be like no way, like civil way, for Palestinians to get remuneration or anything like that, right? Like that would be
I do think you have some options for recourse as a person of the West Bank if you're attacked by a settler. I don't think it's just like they can just murder anyone.
literally.
While it is
But probably
true
unequal
that wait,
outcomes would be
real
the
quick.
case,
While
yeah.
it's true that you can't just like indiscriminately murder anybody, it does seem to be the case that there's a history of IDF soldiers killing civilians. It gets investigated, even by the Israeli military. They determine that improper actions happen, that somebody's killed indiscriminately, and then the punishments for the soldiers are unbelievably soft sometimes, like to the course of like 1 or 2 years of like you're either suspended or like in jail for less than a year for like murdering civilians. Which is pretty
Yeah, and
crazy.
also the fact that like if you're like an outposter, you might even have more
I think we
rights
can all
than
agree the
than
consequences
someone who
should be
lives in the
much
West
more
Bank.
severe. I think we can all
Yeah.
agree that the
Yeah.
consequences should be much more severe, right? Israel has a lot of work to do in how it treats a lot of its populations, right?
Yeah. So
Using the term apartheid is something that I disagree with. I do agree that it could become apartheid, and there's especially with the national law that happened in what
The
2018. I think that
frustration,
it's
I'm
getting
just
much
saying.
closer there.
frustration that I
So
have,
one
But
sentence,
it
one sentence. All I'm saying is
the
that like
frustration that I have
if
is
you don't
the
agree,
frustration
all
that I
I'm saying,
have is that
the
when
one
we
sentence,
call
one
Interrupted
sentence,
interruption.
one sentence,
Incredible.
one sentence,
Christ, you
one
cannot be
sentence.
Okay,
quiet.
okay,
Shut it.
both of you are getting fucking muted. What the fuck? You guys fucking stupid. Prime, chill out, man. Let Quibbles talk, by the way, please.
Okay.
Go ahead, Quibbles.
Okay. The frustration that I have is that when people call it apartheid, they are by definition calling the entirety of it Israel, right? So you can't simultaneously believe that the West Bank is not part of Israel and also call it apartheid, right? It's if you want to call it an occupation, valid, but there's a difference between occupation and apartheid. Apartheid requires that it's the same country.
No, it doesn't. Not legally.
What? No. What are you talking
That's why
about?
it's illegal.
Absolutely
That's
not.
why it's an appeal to a legal
Okay,
definition. The
no,
crime
so-
of apartheid. The crime of
let me say
apartheid does
my
not need
one
to happen in your own country. Okay.
All I want to
It's not
say is
Quibbles.
It's just it
what?
needs to be a system. It doesn't need to be like one
wait,
state.
okay. In
In
order for
countries,
it to,
not
there has to,
apartheid.
in order for something to be legally considered legit, right? There also has to be legal precedents. So, what legal precedents has there been where a country has been guilty of apartheid against non-citizens?
Well, that's why I said there's
and
a lot.
people who are non.
Well, that's why I said that there's
but
quite a
not
lot
just
of wiggle room
non-citizens,
in it because there
non-citizens
hasn't been
not
much
living in that
precedent, right? That's why.
Well,
but
and I
that's
think
why
also
I think.
wait, and or sorry, go on.
And because
Yeah.
Israel is unique in this situation, right? That like this form of like extreme occupation for an extremely long period of time, something that we have very rarely seen. I don't know, like what East like Indonesia maybe. I don't know any other
Most
examples. of
countries
anything like
literally
this.
just genocide or kill those populations instead of
Well,
do this, right? So
Yeah, and
and
that
you
was
can literally can look
bad,
at
and
all of
this
those
is
in situations. So I don't understand what you expect in a lot of these
So,
situations. A lot of
from the-
times Israel's back is completely against the wall from their perspective. And that's why I always ask what do you expect them to do? Because I had a lot of expectations. I was a leftist Israeli, right? Just like the majority of the Israelis that got killed on October 7th, right? I had a bunch of you stop rolling your eyes. That's so disrespectful.
I will absolutely
Ryan?
not do that. I will not do that. I will roll my fucking eyes. Thank you. God, you know that.
so
Fuck
Okay.
that.
The
But no,
fuck, dude?
from the UN Charter,
No.
the crime
So
against
what happened?
humanity of
She's not
apartheid.
finished.
How dare you just roll your eyes like at that
I
situation?
will do that. I will
Okay.
do whatever I want with my face. You don't control
How
that.
dare
I'm
you.
And
sorry.
I'll-
You don't get to
call you
colonize my
out
face.
for making
Don't
fun
get
of
to colonize my
the
face.
largest killing of Jews since the
Let
Holocaust.
them play the
Okay.
victim card. Go.
Yeah, stop trying. Stop knocking it
Okay.
off. So from the UN Charter,
I was
right?
in the middle of a
the
sentence.
crime against humanity of apartheid
Right.
capable of being committed during an occupation
Right.
that is governed by
She
international
was in the middle of a
humanitarian law.
sentence.
First, Article
Yeah, she
3 of
wasn't
the International
finished.
Convention.
She was literally in the middle of a
Yeah.
sentence.
She was not
Okay.
finished.
She attacked me. She was in the middle sentence of attacking me. So then I
Because
stepped
you
in. So
rolled
shut
your
up.
And you
eyes
not
and
attack
Yeah,
people?
and now
talking
roll
about
my
This is
eyes
meta
again.
shit.
You
This is
can't
meta shit.
colonize
Just-
my eyes.
Okay,
Stop
All
that
right,
shit.
all
Keep
right,
going,
all right,
the
all
others.
right, all right.
Please,
Wait,
first
wait,
sentence.
stop. Quibble. Okay. Eris, Finish your point, and then Prime go afterwards. Please don't interrupt her.
When so there was like this major attack on primarily leftist Jews, and leftist Jews primarily, sorry, leftist Jews, leftist Israelis, right? Because when you're talking about Israelis, they're most when you're talking about leftist Jews in Israel, obviously they're all Israelis, so I'm going to use it interchangeably in this situation. But they're always like, they were making tons of allocations. One of the things that they were the one that pushed Ariel Sharon to leave the party and supported him in leaving the party of Likud in order to even make to pull out of Gaza and to make that peace allocation, right? There were a bunch of other instances. They were the ones that pushed, and it's a bunch of the people that actually got kidnapped were peace activists who were constantly trying to push for more people in Gaza, because there's a huge unemployment rate in Gaza, and that's what leads to a lot of the radicalization that happens there, right? So they were pushing for more permits to go work there. This is not, you can keep rolling your eyes, but these are like real policies that were pushed for. And what ended up happening is leftist Israelis got completely humiliated on October 7th, because what happened with those Gazans that were given those work permits, okay, a huge portion of them were literally using it to gather intel, to take pictures, to gather intel about how many civilians and how many babies and how many women were in each village that they wanted to attack. And this is, you can look this up yourself. This is just like given evidence. I don't think this is so funny, you know?
All
I don't
right.
know, like I don't know, like
Emrys,
why you're laughing at
Emrys,
this.
let's let Prime reply.
Sure.
Prime, go ahead.
Thank you. Ignoring that, back to what I was actually responding to, the apartheid, right? The crime against humanity of apartheid is capable of being committed during an occupation that is governed by international humanitarian law. First, Article 3 of the International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination obligates states to prevent, prohibit, and eradicate all practices of this nature. Racial segregation and apartheid in territories under their jurisdiction. So,
So you are opinions of the law now.
so
Okay, so when you say
We're in my
apartheid,
position.
no, yeah, and the law,
Based.
as many different organizations have established, this falls under apartheid.
Okay.
And so,
So when you
all I
say
was trying to say,
apartheid-
Quibble, and now Quibble's talking. What?
No, Quibble, don't. Let's not do this again, please. Prime, go
Thank you.
there.
So when you say like you don't feel like this is apartheid, right? I don't care about how you feel, whether it's apartheid or not. What I'm saying is that there are actual practices that are mirrored in both. And if you don't think these are the same, I think what it means is that you're not familiar with South African apartheid. The mechanisms of control used against the Black population there are mirrored in the methods of control used against Palestinians. That's
I
my
don't
point.
think that's true because there's
infographic, you hit that
Palestinians
one.
that are actually in government in Israel. There's like
Yeah.
they have freedom. They're able to vote. They engage in democracy. Like
beyond the
it's
Supreme Court.
not.
Yeah.
It's yes. It's not like when you're talking about the mechanisms of control. They're not really as
So
similar.
if you're saying
So-
okay, so is the standard of like any crime, right? That the facts of the crime must be literally exactly the same, or it's
No,
not
no,
the
it's not
crime,
that they have to
right?
be exactly
There
the
are
same. It's
general
that when we
checklists.
use the
There's a
word,
general
that's what we're
checklist.
referring to.
Wait, I think hold on.
That's
When
what
we
we
talk about,
mean when we say
okay,
apartheid. So
I think
if
when we
we
talk
say the
about
word, that's what we're referring to.
I think when we're talking about apartheid, if we're being good faith, okay, I think generally when we talk about what we feel like apartheid is if you have a country and then that country has policies that are literally separating out racial groups in terms of the rights allotted to them, right? This is a horrible thing that all of us should be opposed to. I think the difference is that for Israel, these are occupied territories. The situation is quite a bit different. If this was a one-state thing and it was all one country and they were giving explicitly different rules for Arab Palestinians, I think all of us agree that would be horrible. I'm sure most people here would say, yeah, we can call that apartheid. But we're dealing with like a military occupation of military borders, armistice lines. It's a bit different, I think.
Well, let me ask you
hold on,
then,
but it's
Justin.
like you think, but
Prime,
that's
please.
these
Prime.
organizations.
Wait, Prime, let's
please.
let somebody else get
Stop.
in as well.
Oh my
Hold on,
God.
Oh, shut up,
So-
Quibbles. Fuck you.
Yeah,
so,
what's up?
So I was going to ask you then. So with what you just said,
Mhm.
let's assume Israel annexes all of the West Bank tomorrow, and everything else, all else equal, everything else stays the same.
Yeah.
Would you call it apartheid then?
Absolutely.
So
But
it's
I think
just
that's
like
probably
the
why like Israel
practice.
wouldn't want to annex. Like,
Oh.
if you gave Israel the opportunity, well, yeah, there's the one-state solution. If Israel had the opportunity to annex both territories, Israel wouldn't want to because they don't want to give equal rights to those people.
I just want to say, so outside
So-
of all the dipshits on Twitter, that is generally the argument that people like advocates give when they call it apartheid. Is they're saying it's just like it might as well be because of how it functions. But yeah,
Yeah, because the issue is because the military. Because I think in the original definition of apartheid, I don't remember they're trying to cuck out to extend it more because they want to condemn Israel or whatever. But I think as part of the original chapter that talks about apartheid, it's the intent to have like an extended like racial separation. Like you're trying to establish something over a period of time, which is what South Africa was, what like 50 years or whatever.
Yeah.
is what you're trying to do. Yeah. So for Israel, right? If we were in 1970, right, or 1975, and we call this apartheid, that's stupid. 1980, probably stupid. 1990, 2000, 2023, where we've had these armistice lines for like 50 years, 60 years. Well, now it starts to feel a lot different. I can understand why people are like, is this apartheid? It kind of feels like it. There's still military borders and it's an occupation, not official territory. But yeah, it gets a little bit murkier. But the problem with people like throwing it out as being apartheid, it's not. The problem isn't really the apartheid. The problem are the military borders and the lack of actual permanent borders. That's the real problem, right? Because if the actual states get set up, then the apartheid problem is simple. That's an easy problem to solve, right?
Well, that's the.
So
I think the
I
big
wanna-
reason, the big reason behind people going for the apartheid thing is they want to use it as a prerequisite for, like they did in South Africa, which is voting rights. Like they want a one
So-
state. with
so
it.
I want to-
I understand that. Wait, I
So-
understand
for-
why they
for
want
a
to do
minute.
that, but the issue then is that people all over the world are doing this. Is they set up this issue as being an Israel versus Palestine issue when they talk about it being apartheid, but that's not the issue. It's not Israel versus Palestine. It's Israel versus the Arab world. That's the issue. And when you only frame it as Palestinian rights, you miss the entire point of like why
purposely
this is
disingenuous.
Destiny, you've
So-
appealed
so
to the
I wanna
UN
step
many
in
times
for
in
a
your
minute.
conversation, right? You've appealed to the UN many times. When the
So
UN
I
says,
wanna-
right? I googled it
Okay.
and right there, the UN says that this is apartheid. Why do you disagree with that?
Because I think it's a stupid analysis of the situation. It's a military
So-
occupation. I wouldn't expect them to
Okay,
have
so
the same
it's
rights.
how you feel, right? Not like whether like the UN, which you've appealed to many times before. It's just you feel that's not an apartheid, not that like it hasn't been adjudicated as such.
Are you
right?
capable of engaging with
So-
any of the rationalization I just gave, or are you
So-
just going to say like it feels and like that means my argument is
No,
incorrect?
you said that's
Hold on, wait, no, wait.
You're saying it's
I did not say.
European.
Hold on,
Well,
let me,
I
no,
asked
wait,
you
wait,
what
I can
it
restate
is.
it. I can restate it. Yeah, I can restate it. I didn't say I feel like it's not apartheid, so it's not. What I said was apartheid is generally what I would imagine would be levied towards a state that is enforcing racially separate policies with people that live in their borders. That was the issue with South Africa. South Africa's not a military occupation. South Africa was black people had fundamentally different rights codified in law and enforced with the military. Tens of thousands of people died during apartheid, right? Political violence, as opposed to that. But the difference is
benches they were allowed to sit on.
the problem with Israel and Palestine isn't that it's apartheid. The problem is that it's a military occupation. If the military occupation ends, the apartheid issue goes away. But the apartheid issue will never be solved while it's a military occupation. So focusing on the apartheid part is stupid. That's what I'm saying.
So okay, yeah, all right, fine. But it's that you're saying it's in your opinion. All I'm saying. then-
Kill me. I'm going to kill myself.
Hold on,
I'm
show
gonna kill
Well, you
myself.
just said it was your opinion, correct?
Oh my God.
You said it was your opinion.
It's all over
Hold
me.
on.
I'm on the 20th floor.
All
I'm going overboard right now. I'm leaving.
Destiny. Look, I just restated what you said. That's your opinion, correct? Right? Then fine. Then I will just state for the record, for the audience, that the UN says this is apartheid. That the definition I gave you before, under international law, says that if it's under that territory,
I have
is
no
under
problem. Fine.
the
Yes, I will
opposing
say I
jurisdiction.
think the UN calling this apartheid is fucking retarded. I think it's a stupid thing
Okay,
for the UN to
agree.
do.
Fine.
I think it moves-
Look,
and I
I'm
think
pretty sure
yes,
we're
and I think it
talking
moves
about
all
one-
of us, all of us,
Let me-
one
Seven, hold
Okay,
on,
wait, hold on.
one second. Let me- Seven,
We
trying
only
to step
appeal
in for
to
a
the
minute.
UN when we agree with what they say. We only appeal to the UN when we agree with them.
Well, the
Let
UN,
me-
the UN only
let me-
convicted
let
like
me-
10% of the Nazi
okay, hold on.
officials. Okay?
So-
The UN's not right.
So
every
let
time,
me.
everything.
I'm going to step in.
They made the
trying to
partition
Head of the
plan.
Human
for a
Rights
minute.
Council right now is
So-
Iran. Like, come on, we can all agree that
So
UN
anyway-
is somehow
anyways,
correct.
so anyway, hold on.
Right?
Hold on.
Wow.
Hold
On
on.
the Human
Okay.
Rights
So
Council.
anyways,
UN
so
wait,
hold
this is
on.
a really
No,
short thing. I'm just
Jesus
cut in
fucking
and then I'll be
Christ.
done. The
I've
UN
been cutting him for like 10
making a
minutes. No,
claim
Quibbles.
about an
Calm down.
actual statistic
Quibbles.
is
No, I'm
different
just
than
going to
the
talk
UN
now.
Making
It's
a
like
claim
I'm just going to
about,
say
like,
this.
just
I'm just
Okay,
going
both
to
of you
talk
stop.
over you.
Stop one and then the other. One and then the other.
Both
Jesus
of you
fucking Christ.
stop.
Jesus.
Okay. Fabian hasn't spoken in a while. We'll let him
So
go
peaceful.
first.
All right. So, as I was trying to say, you guys are going to hate me for this, but it's important to point out. So, what has just happened in the last 15 to 20 minutes, and this is why it's really important, and I'm speaking mostly to the audience because I know all of you are going to hate me for this, but it's really important that you understand what you actually saw, because what you actually saw is the dialectic process taking place before you, right? What you actually saw is how leftism destroys these conversations, because aristocracy and quibbles over coffee are they're talking about two specific things. They're talking about a double standard where Israel is judged by this extreme standard that historically all of these other nations aren't, and trying to and Eris brings up this idea that like this is an established government that is a liberal democracy within the area. And so once she says liberal democracy, right, what the leftism speaking through Prime Kais sees that and goes, there is a way. I have this thesis, which is that there is this contradiction, right? There's this contradiction between some people saying apartheid and this idea that it's supposedly a democracy. And Eris tries to stop this, to say, hey, look, if you're going to be this nitpicky about it, about what is a liberal democracy in the region, not actually engage with the conversation, but instead try and subvert the conversation with language games, then like we could do the same thing about the US or any other country. And he forces the antithesis, this idea that actually it's an apartheid state. And what it does is destroys the quality of the conversation so that he can infect it with leftist philosophy instead of actually engaging with the arguments that are put forward before him. And that is why we are in this shit show right now.
Okay, Fabian, that was great. That was a great spot to end Quibbles. You wanted to say something. By the way, after Quibbles is done, then we're gonna, get to our closing remarks, and then we're gonna pick a winner, because yes, there will be a winner for this show. Quibbles, go ahead.
Cool. Okay. The first thing that I wanted to say was very simple, which is when the UN gives us statistics, those are broadly statistics that can probably be trusted. That's different than when the UN tries to define terms, right? Those aren't the same thing. You can trust them in relationship to their facts and not agree with their opinions, right? Those are two different things. That's the first thing. The second part is I just want to like double down on a lot of what Fabian said there, which is that like, yeah, there is a double standard here. And it's weird that there's this constant conversation trying to parallel the acts of Israel, which is doing the thing that is, though obviously not perfect, a heck of a lot better than what any other country in the totality of the Middle East or Northern Africa has done to their Jews. The only reason this is still a conversation in 2023 is because they refuse to do what everyone else did. They refuse to do what everyone else did across the entirety of the Middle East, which is to create an ethno-state by forcing out everyone who wasn't part of their ethnicity, right? And that's why, to this day, 20% of people in Israel proper are Palestinian. That's why they have someone on the Supreme Court. That's why they were a democracy. That's why they were part of the governing majority up until the recent past, right? This is something that is fundamentally dissimilar to anywhere else in the entirety of the Middle East or Northern Africa. And so it's frustrating that undergirding all of this is the fact that Israel is being punished today because they refused in the past to do something that was as awful as other countries surrounding them did.
Thank you for that. Ladies and gentlemen, we have come to the end of episode 17 of Kicker Key. Prior to ending, I'll give you all, 30 seconds or so to give closing remarks, starting with Dylan. Go ahead.
I didn't get to really say much of anything this show because of my internet connection. But what I will say is something I didn't get to say the whole time, which is I don't think I trust this Israeli government to engage in any type of offensive operation anywhere, especially if it extends into a long-term occupation. This is the Israeli government that failed to defend its own people in southern Israel. This is an Israeli government which built up the security apparatus for the last 12 years under Netanyahu, and it failed. This is the same Israeli government which ruined its relationship with its reservists and with its military through pushing through the judicial reforms. And I'm supposed to trust an Israeli government that its own people doesn't even trust to manage an occupation where it's clearly, to some extent, if you listen to Benny Gantz or you listen to Netanyahu or you listen to the officials close to him, are in somewhat engaged in a kind of post-9/11 bloodlust that many Americans might remember from the Howard Stern stream, which happened during 9/11 as it was going on. which is a lot of anger, which is leading to loose terms of engagement, which is leading to going headfirst without a plan. The Israeli government still has yet to define exactly what it's going to do after it takes over the Strip outside of eliminate Hamas, which is an international organization.
All
its
right.
leadership is in Qatar. How is it going to do that? That's my question.
All right. Thank you, Dylan, for that closing remark. Fabian, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm Fabian Liberty. Check me out on, Rumble and YouTube, Fabian Liberty. In many ways, I kind of sit in the center, and I still do after all of this. I think that there is massive propaganda, I think, is the biggest takeaway we should take as a closing, and that we should all be very, very careful about what it is that we share, what it is that we believe, and how quickly we share stories. I think, if there's any one thing we can think about from either side, right? I mean, I think the hospital story was an example of that I think a lot of people saw. The baby beheading story. We still don't have accurate information on many of these things, and I think we should recognize that as the world is shifting, as war is shifting from industrial era empires moving into the atomic age, but instead global hegemonic kind of structures that are based upon, the reserve currency of the US dollar and oil and connections and networks, that we recognize that information warfare is at an all new height that never existed before and throughout the social media landscape. And so, yeah, I get it. Talk. Fuck you, socialist. And so what I think is yeah. So I would say,
I said 30
fact
seconds,
check
not
as much
30
as
minutes.
possible.
30 guys, quick reminder again. I said 30 seconds, not 30 minutes. Okay, so Loner, closing remark. 30 seconds, please.
Yeah, it's been a bit wacky seeing a lot of Israeli politicians and right wingers basically turn into Howard Stern after 9/11. It's been maybe less surprising seeing a lot of pro-Palestinian people turn into fucking bin Laden after 9/11. Ultimately, I think both groups obviously deserve peace and dignity and self-determination and human rights and all that shit. Hopefully after this, if Hamas really does get the fuck out, then there can be elections and Palestinians can be represented by a more unified, better leader. And maybe finally the Israeli government can actually decide what the fuck it wants, tell us what borders it wants, stop expanding settlements. Who knows?
There we go. Thank you for that closing remark. That was closer to 30 seconds. Prime. You could take 2 minutes. You could take 3 minutes, actually. I'll give you 5 minutes. Go ahead and give us your closing remark.
Thanks so much. Find me at twitch.tv or youtube.com. Prime Kai, PRIMECAYES. Love to have you. I want to just extend, a thank you to the people who participated, even the ones on the other side. Thank you, Eris. Thank you, Quibbles. Right, even though I told you to go fuck yourself a few times. Thank you to my good friend Scott, who I deeply love, even though he said all those things about me. But shout out to all of you. I stand by what I said. I believe Israel's an apartheid state. And I would like a peaceful, equitable way of ending this, but it's not going to end peacefully while the occupation is happening, and that's really unfortunate. Free Palestine from the river to the sea. Thank you.
Mama.
Oh,
Quibbles. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm Quibbles, whatever. The broader part that I want to talk about is a lot of this was sort of, I think, a conversation that was worthwhile and an interesting conversation, but wasn't necessarily contextualized from the perspective of where we're actually coming from. With the exception of Eris, I believe literally everyone else here is an American. And so I think that it's worth thinking about when we're talking about foreign policy, these kinds of issues from an American perspective. And so when I think about what America should be doing, I would say that, the first thing that I would say is obviously the Iron Dome is exclusively defensive. And so we should be continuing to fund the Iron Dome, and we should probably extend more funding towards the Iron Dome. And the second thing that I would say is that, just as a reminder, the reason that Hamas did this entire attack to begin with on October 7th was because there was a concern about Saudi Arabia and Israel going to becoming more peaceful, and a broader power change away from Iran, who's their largest backer. And so when I think about that sort of backdrop of this, I think that it's really important that America stay resolute in its support of peace between Saudi Arabia and Israel. And so those two things I would say are the most important things from an American perspective.
Beautiful. Thank you for that closing remark. SDL. Go ahead, my man. Oh,
You're muted.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Is he deaf on my end too? Or
Yeah, he's
like,
muted
Yeah,
everywhere, I think.
he's muted. I think his mic's muted or not plugged in or something.
Asdale, you lost your privileges. It's over. It's over. Not gonna get it back. GG. Oh, wait, say something.
He just
Wait,
had
he just
left.
fucking
Just
had it. He left.
Oh.
Wait, he just had it. Yo, SDL, speak up again. It works. It works. Say something.
So I was going to read from the special reporter on apartheid to close out. They say, quote, in the Palestinian territory occupied by Israel since 1967, there is deeply discriminatory dual legal and political systems that privilege the 700,000 Israeli settlers living in the 300 illegal Israeli settlements in East Jerusalem and the West Bank, living in the same geographic space, but separated by walls, checkpoints, roads, and an entrenched military presence. There are more than 3 million Palestinians who are without rights, living under an oppressive rule of institutional discrimination and without a path to a genuine Palestinian state that the world has long promised is their right. That's why we call it apartheid, because de facto it is apartheid for 6 million Palestinians, for millions of people who now have, after Israel's bombardment of Gaza, been displaced. There are 1.4 million people displaced in Gaza. 700,000 of those are children. If you want to help them, you should donate to PCRF, the Palestinian Children's Relief Fund. You can find it, easily access it, and the aid goes directly to keeping children alive. Children in South Gaza are only drinking half a liter a day. Give money.
Beautiful. Thank you for that closing remark. Stardust, you've had plenty
Hi,
to say. I don't know if I should. I don't know if I should even give you a closing remark, honestly. But
yeah, I don't
go
know.
ahead.
I don't know. I came to join this panel because I was super interested. I messaged Carantos during. I was like, oh, I've been like covering this for like the past week. And he was like, yeah, just join. We're in our last round. But yeah, obviously things were heated, so I couldn't really get a whole lot in. I guess if I were gonna say a couple of things on this, I would say, my opinion is that no one has like a unique right to land purely because of their ethnic background or because of how long their ancestors have been there. Like we could, imagine if, you had immigrants in America, and sometimes you do have this where people are, say like, oh, your ancestors didn't contribute to the society. Like, why should you be here? Why do you deserve the the results of the toils of our ancestors, so I don't think that I think basically whether your ancestors were existing on the land prior or not, everybody has a right to exist and to have a home as long as they don't infringe on other people's rights or their safety. Neither side in the conflict is completely guilt-free. I think Israel obviously needs to stop occupation. And I think ordering the evacuation of the Gazans needed to be better coordinated. If you look at like a partition in India and the mass migration that followed because of that, that ended up in like millions of deaths, right? So I think that there could have been better coordination with the evacuation of northern Gaza. It would have taken, sorry, it would have taken longer, but it would have been worth it. But either way, I understand why Israel needs to get involved. There's no other choice in my opinion. They need to get involved. So.
Right.
Yeah.
Thank you for that take. Tom, go ahead and bless us with your closing statement.
Yeah, just super happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Wait, that's it? Oh my God, I love you, man. You're
That's
fucking
it.
amazing, bro. Yeah, hey, you hit me up later. I got you. Eris, please go ahead.
The first thing I want to say is I think Israel Palestine. I'm hoping that the reason why it gets so much attention is not because of anti-Semitism, but is actually because it's a symbolic demonstration of a land back movement, which is right now a massive idea that's being perpetuated in universities and intellectual circles and like online on the left, and it's almost become mainstream now. And you have two populations that argue over whether or not who is more indigenous. They both have their own arguments. Whether or not you agree with them, I think is somewhat irrelevant because I land on where Stardust is. That I don't think it matters where your ancestors are from. I think we should admit that this land back ideology is racist, is dangerous, and directly led to the disgusting genocidal acts of Hamas on October 7th, which is being cheered on by mainstream leftist organizations. The largest university in Canada, the largest university, mainstream university in Canada, all its student unions came out supporting the attacks on October 7th, right? This has been a regular issue throughout basically the entire West. To me, that is the much larger concern here. There is this very dangerous ideology that if you have had your land stolen in the past, that somehow that justifies what you do. This entire conversation started in the beginning with Prime making claims about who is a settler, and that type of language is dog whistle language. I consider it dog whistle language, and I think this is how we should start talking about it, because it is dangerous. And I'm telling you, to anyone here, okay, you are probably on stolen land, and it justifies your ethnic cleansing. It justifies your genocide, and it's something that we need to stamp out. That type of ideology. It's dangerous regardless. And this idea that Jews should be more scared of the right wing is something I categorically reject now after what happened on October 7th, because obviously that was, tons of lefties have told me that that's exactly what decolonization looked like. So that's my largest concern. Also other than that, I hate the current Israeli government. Okay, it fucking sucks, and they have a huge part in play of why they let so many of their own people die on October 7th. That's it.
Beautiful way to close your closing statement. Thank you very much. Is there a poll in chat, let's see, for the winner? Because we are selecting a winner.
There is indeed a poll. That's how we decide who wins, Israel or Palestine. World peace is being decided by this poll.
Plead your case, ladies and gentlemen. Plead your case.
I'd like to point out that I believe this panel has been an apartheid panel, as I was the only person that got bitched at for going over 30 seconds.
You did all the fucking talking.
No, Q was doing the whole hurry up thing with his hands, so I felt the pressure.
Yeah. But, I'm just saying. I didn't get that special Jew treatment. It's fucked up.
Hey, can I just throw in really quickly?
They pay the most, man.
Muslims were colonizers for a good part of history. As well,
come on.
The term Palestine is an imperialist term, right?
Yeah.
So.
Okay.
Who cares? The whole thing of this debate was Quibbles bringing up all these bad things that countries have done in the past. Okay, are we here to condemn the actions of Iran in the 1950s? Or are we here to talk about something in 2020?
Iran just killed a kid who was 16 for not wearing.
Yeah, and that sucks. But is it possible to condemn multiple things at the same time? Am I living in a world where you can only oppose one country at a time? Come on.
No, you can oppose multiple ones, but there are standards that are not being held across the board. So.
Exactly.
The one about that's the double standard.
The double standard is that there's.
I think bitching about one specific quibble is silly.
So I'm saying that
one quibble that has 5.5 million people in apartheid.
America was.
That's not what I fucking said,
I'm not,
weirdo.
I'm not just saying that's Israel. Certainly not. There are many countries that have done this. So.
The very fact that there are as many people as there are that live in the West Bank is because there hasn't been an ethnic cleansing, right? And so, yes, you're right. The number is much higher today of people than it was.
What do you think an ethnic cleansing is? It's when you move people, not take down their numbers.
Much larger than
the reason Gaza is. Wait, would you make this? Would you say that there wasn't
So
reason that it's higher than
would you say that
one thing here
is because
I'm so sorry.
They're doing something. They're doing something that other countries aren't doing, which is to try to protect those civilians. And that's not something that is happening in Egypt. That is not something that happened in Iran or Iraq or Jordan or Lebanon or Ethiopia. It is different.
Quibbles.
I just want to be clear that this is not on Israel for that. The fact that they didn't kill this population or they didn't completely kick them out. They did kick them out. This is established in 1948, right? This is established history, right? The reason why they still exist is not because, we can give credit to Israel for not bombing the shit out of them like tons of countries have done, sure. But the primary reason is that they have not been absorbed into other Arab countries, and they haven't been given their own country because of various reasons, from Israel to the UN to their own corruption within their own government, lots of tons of different reasons. So it's just I don't want to give Israel
I'm
credit
specifically talking
for somehow. Yeah,
Yeah, I'm
Quibbles,
saying
I think
I'm
that that's
saying
Quibbles, I
I'm
need
talking
to
about the
Quibbles, I
West
need to
Bank
correct
here.
one thing. Ethnic
Yeah, go for it.
cleansing, it does include like forced deportation, forced population transfers.
like
No, I agree.
everyone else
If
said
you're
that.
talking about
yeah, that's
48,
definitely
That's all
I
it is.
agree
That's not
with
what it
you. If
includes.
you're
Yeah.
talking about 48, if you're talking about the Nakba, I agree with you. My point is that everything that is going on currently in the West Bank, though awful, is objectively less awful than simply forcing all of the Palestinians living there out of the West Bank and making it part of Israel
But that
proper,
doesn't make
which
it
is
good,
what
right?
precisely happened
right?
to the Jews across the rest of the Middle East.
But you agree that doesn't make it good. So like we understand that. There's levels to
I'm
all
just-
of them. We get that though, right?
The
I
point
understand.
is that I think that it's
I agree with you,
frustrating.
Quibbles.
Right. I'm just frustrated there's not this equivalent like rage, and there's not a recognition that the reason that this is even a conversation today is because they did the right thing, or at least the comparatively better thing in the past compared to everywhere else in the rest of the Middle East.
Okay, hold on, stop.
Wait, so
listen,
you're
okay?
frustrated by
Hold on,
okay.
wait. This is like the okay. I'm a huge Israel stan, but this is the worst argument ever. Okay, this is like being in court confronted with a woman that I've raped 20 times, and me saying like, "Listen, the only reason why this bitch can accuse me of rape is because I didn't cut her throat." Okay, can you really be that mad at me? This is the wildest argument in the fucking world. Okay,
It's not a matter.
Hold on.
It's not. a
Israel doesn't get
defense.
credit for not genociding all the Arab Palestinians. You're never gonna get credit for that.
I'm
So
not
that's what
saying
you
they
want to get
deserve credit. I'm
Okay,
saying.
okay, but
I'm
then
saying
saying
that
that like, well, the only
condemnations
reason we
aren't
have to deal.
parallel.
The
No,
condemnation.
Stephen,
No one is
I'm not
condemning them for
asking
committing
for credit.
genocide. I'm just saying that like you can't. Israel doesn't get credit
I'm
for
not
not
asking for
genociding
credit.
the Arab Palestinians. You
The
are. You're saying like,
frustration
well,
that there's not a condemnation. I'm not asking for credit. I'm asking for condemnation. There's not a
What?
condemnation that is coming to the equivalent degree of all of the rest of the countries that did something significantly worse. And that
Because
lack
wait,
of
wait, wait, 70 years ago.
Wait. To be clear, hold on. There was a condemnation. Okay, it was called World War II. We invaded Germany and we fucking destroyed them. Okay, there was a condemnation of
No,
Japanese
we're not
Germans.
talking
The
about
Chinese.
Germany.
We
We're not
invaded.
talking about Poland. I'm
I thought
talking
you were
about
talking
the
about the
Middle East. I'm
Holocaust,
talking about
right?
Ethiopia. No,
He's talking about the
no,
Jewish
I'm
exodus from the Middle East and North
I'm talking
Africa.
about the exodus of Jews across all of the Middle East and also Northern Africa.
And that
Sure.
was
I'm talking about
awful.
Egypt.
Yeah, but everyone. So,
okay,
just a few things, Quibbles. First of all, everyone agrees that that was condemnable. Second of all, Palestinians didn't do that. Okay, so that's another thing. And also, you keep on saying
I'm not saying that
you've been really frustrated this whole conversation about bad equivalencies. I mean, we can even go down that road because, as far as I know this from reading fucking Benny Morris, is that for the Nakba they were mostly kicked out either because people came to their villages with fucking guns and said fuck off, or because they knew about massacres and other deportations were happening next to them. That's not equivalent to the Jewish exodus, which was people leaving because of persecution. Some people were forced out of the Middle East and North Africa. Most of them left voluntarily. So that's a bit, I can even say that's different, even though they're both deplorable.
To call that voluntary. I really don't think it's fair to call that voluntary. Like that is not the topic of the conversation.
I think
it wasn't equivalent to the Nakba. That's all I'm saying.
It definitely wasn't, but I think that there are definitely different types of like groups of people we can talk about. For instance, like before 48, I'm pretty sure the majority of the Jewish people that were down there were fleeing from like the Russian Empire, and I think they were like blatantly doing like pogroms and like anti-Semitism was rampant pre-USSR before they took
I would say the same thing as well, but I'm also just saying is like you've been. I normally wouldn't do this, but it's just because you've been really frustrated by people drawing equivalencies all the time. But you seem to be perfectly happy to act as if the Nakba and the Jewish exodus were like the same thing, basically.
I'm saying that the lack of condemnation
post World War II, the Jews were in like refugee camps for like 4 years after that, and then you know when some of them tried to return to their homes, they would get.
I think my frustration.
Also, wait, real quick. Speaking of refugee camps, Loner Box, congratulations, you have won this episode of Palestine versus Israel. So all of those Palestinian kids, and I'm sure you're going to forward your $500 worth of gifted subs to from Kick, okay, are going to be so happy. Okay, the children of Gaza are eating tonight. Thank you, Loner Box. I just wanted to close that officially, announce the winner so that Q can. I know he's tired over there. He's probably got a lot of military operations he's preparing for tomorrow. Okay, I know you feel very strongly about this. I know that Hamas recruits from all over the world, so you know, I want to give you an opportunity to.
The point. Wait, hold on. Let me speak up for myself. Listen, I'm fucking sick as fuck. Okay, so I just showed up because listen, I got a job to do and I did it. Okay, at Loner, congratulations again.
Thanks.
I'm expecting 250. You know what I mean? But like for you, I'd give you a discount, like maybe 150. Yeah, it's okay. But guys, I appreciate all of you for coming on. I'm sure this conversation is gonna continue. So enjoy.
Yeah, the point that I was trying to make there, is that I think that we often, I think it's very like convenient often that we talk about things from a particular like timeline. We talk about like the number of people that were here in 2024 or in 48 or in 67, whatever it might be. And one of the
Quibbles.
things that we often do that is very convenient is we make this conversation be about Israel Palestine rather than being about the Middle East as a whole. If you look at the Middle East as a whole, the narrative of Jewish oppression